Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Today is October 23rd, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar, 1443 on the ancient sun calendar, and 2022 on the Greco-Roman calendar. All rise and stand and remain standing into perpetuity. This is a sovereign, living, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American, Article 3, court action. We are the sovereign living justice in capitis diminution nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. I am sovereign living justice, Pauline Denise Ritchie. My free chosen sovereign appellation is Light Tajiri Bay. Both are in capitis diminution nolo, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes, in all colors of ink. All Moors are the original indigenous, sovereign, ancient, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American ascendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. Our full faith and trust, our allegiance, our credit, and our energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous, natural divine, sovereign ancient empire state for Morocco. We are the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government. We are Washington District for Columbia, the ancient Washington District for Columbia. We are the Universal Moorish American Consulate and the Article 3 Moorish American Consular Court. Today we are exercising the law by our sovereign capacity, which is the original indigenous, natural divine, sovereign ancient Article 3 living United States District for Columbia Court. And we are the sovereign fiduciaries, receivers, secured creditors, executors, trustees, ministers, possessors, and beneficiaries in this cause for action. We are peace. We are one nation, one state, one empire, and one God. We hereby accept our sovereign ascension, issue a universal creditor's bill for possession against all judgment debtors, and exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time, nunc-pro-tunc. So the first thing that we want to state on the public record is that we are not at war. We are not at war with anyone, and there is no thing for us to war about, which is why we're not at war. War energy from the previous era tends to try and present itself, and we rebut that any presentment of war or anything like that, because this we are our own state, we are our own government, and we are our own empire. So we don't have anything to war about. We have the title to the land. We have the land has always been ours, and it always will be. And so, the land was ours before we decided to even put it here. So we would suggest that all be mindful of the spells that you cast, because, in many cases we hear spells coming from the Moors and it kind of explains why they are doing the and the demonstrations that they do, are not as optimal as they could be. So, be mindful of the spells that you cast and the things that proceed out of your mouth, because the word is everything. It's everything for us, and our word is what demonstrates first before we actually do a demonstration. And that is evident in the demonstrations that we have been doing and seeing, and speaking with other Moors about and witnessing, etc., is that our word is everything, and it makes all the difference in the world, the outcome of the demonstrations, based on what we say first and then what we do. With that being said, we were talking in the previous session about financial information regarding domiciles. We referred to the Constitution for the United States, Article 1, Section 8, the General Welfare Clause. We also referred to 12 United States Code 95A, second paragraph. We also referred to, and we didn't refer to this in the last meeting, but we're referring to it now, Federal Public Law 73, subsection 10 or Article 10, and then House Joint Resolution 192 for 1933. So this is actually a road map. This is a map of financial information regarding domiciles and our proper and rightful claim to all domiciles, all land, anything that has to do with commerce at all. Article 1, Section 8 says the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare for the United States. And as we know, when we say United States, unless we specify otherwise, we're speaking about us because we are the original indigenous states united. We always have been, and of course there were mimickers who mimicked our status, our sovereign status, and they took some things and mimicked it and capitalized and subrogated and pretended to be us. And, you know, there's two sides to every story, to every part of who we are. There's two sides to it. That mimicry was indeed fraud, okay? The mimicry was also actors acting things out so that we could see them acting it out and then implement it for us and for ourselves. You know, they were showing us how, you know, we, the people, have the authority to say and do and be and engage in whatever we choose to engage in terms of commerce and relations and international and universal relations with other nations. We have the authority to do that as often as we choose to do it without interference from third-party interlopers or whatever. So we can look at what they've done and see that, okay, we can do all of that. Okay, and it will actually not be fraud when we do it. It will be real when we do it, whereas they were just acting. So here it says, but all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. This clause is where uniform, quote unquote, commercial codes come from. This is where uniform codes for, there are practically numerous uniform codes. There are uniform codes for things like powers of attorney. You can look up uniform code for powers of attorney. You can look up uniform codes for uniform commercial codes. You can look up uniform bankruptcy codes. You can look up uniform codes for just about everything out there. And then with regard to 12 United States Code 95A, the second paragraph, if you put this, paying all debts and providing for the common defense and general welfare for the United States, if you put that with this, then you're, again, tying the Constitution to, which is the supreme law for the land, to a public United States code that was mimicked for us to look at in those fake courts, which is how those fake courts got around to a full acquittance and discharge for things that we thought should have been prosecuted. For example, if there was someone calling themselves black, and I'm not justifying this because it's absolutely not what we would do. And if someone was calling themselves black and there was someone calling themselves a police officer who shot the black person, the person who thought they were black, in the back and killed them. Then they would go into their dead, fake United States courts, and they would give full acquittance and discharge for that commercial action. Well, it is a commercial action from their perspective. You know, we don't condone any of that, but we want to show you where full acquittance and discharge, you know, when they say he was acquitted of all charges, there it is right there. That's how that happened. Okay? And that happened because there was first court actions that were put on, and fake court actions, rather, fake court actions and corporate codes and statutes, because those aren't even real courts, they're corporations. They did some actions, and they stopped at identification, proper identification of the parties. And when the parties are properly identified, and then the one that was doing business as police officer, that office of police officer, okay, which is actually our office, not theirs, not any foreign matter, that office of police officer is a United States office. All offices are United States offices, and when we say United States in this case, we're talking about us, the people. So with that being the case, they were given full acquittance and discharge by their fake courts, which is why our courts are so important. And our courts handle all levels of matters, okay? Matters of personam jurisdiction, matters of territorial jurisdiction, and matters of subject matter jurisdiction once the threshold for personam jurisdiction is met. Personam jurisdiction as the threshold is the most important piece of any court action. It is the most important, proper identification of the parties. And that proper identification of the parties will determine who gets to state whether a crime has been committed and who committed that crime. Okay? So when you're talking about things like evictions and things like that, well, proper identification of the parties is the most important piece there too, because was there some documentation where someone claimed to be the tenant and someone claimed to be the government or the landlord? Proper identification of the parties. We know that there are no landlords but the Moors. We know that. That is a given because the land was ours long before anyone else was here. We actually created this land by our will and our sovereign ability. So the landlord, you know, when we sign things saying I'm a tenant and that one sitting across the table is the landlord, then proper identification of the parties has occurred by your own word. So what we would do is we would restate, reform any documentation where domicile is concerned. Okay, we would rewrite. Okay, we would reconstruct those forms so that it is clear the identity of the parties. So when, again, you're putting Article 1, Section 8 with 12 United States Code 95A, the second paragraph, and I will say this about that. We're going to show some other parts of 12 USC that state that the nationals have the authority to do anything with regard to financial transactions and exchanges regarding domiciles, conveyances, or anything else. It is by our affidavits that finance and credits move back and forth. because we've been looking at that part thinking, how do we make the credits in the bank, quote unquote, move back and forth in the system so that it is recognized by the subjects? Because our job right now is to ensure that the things that we put on the public record are recognized by our subjects. Okay, so again, we're not at war. No one's trying to stop us from getting anything. What's happening at this point is we've already done away with all war energy and anything that has to do with war and foreigners and all of that. We did away with that with liens and affidavits and proper statement of who we are. And our statehood proclamation, because we've always been the state, we're the law, we're the government, and our state is within our empire state. So with all of that being said, we have done away with any war energy and anything of that nature. So now we're dealing with subjects, but we have to assist the subjects so that they can serve better. Okay, we have to assist the subjects so they can serve better. And the best way to do that is to look at what the subjects are looking at when things are being done in the system. Look at it. We started looking at city ordinances and codes and statutes and how to implement them regarding buildings and domiciles and structures. We need to see what is it that they're looking at that says, okay, this is a go, this paperwork is good, the system recognizes this, and or do they call for policy enforcers and things be happening that way, which is in and of itself a test for us. So there, that has happened for many of us, and that was supposed to happen for many of us because that was the test that was put before us. We called that test forth, okay? And so now we're moving past that part, and now we're at, okay, what is being looked at here? So from our perspective, these are the things that we would use to state our sovereign status and to state the nature of the forms that we create. Okay, so this is undergirding and underwriting the forms that we create. So, and then you can look up Public Law 7310 and House Joint Resolution 192 for 1933. Okay, so this is how, and then when you do craft an affidavit with this, and then do a form for something like Section 8 housing. Okay, you would look at the Section 8 housing form and then create one yourself because you're speaking from your state, and then you would send that, hand it down as a court action to the subject so that they can recognize what's being done, so that you don't have to go without, and so that it will be stated clearly that if there's any controversy, that your status and the law is the foundation by which anything further happens. Okay, so for those who need domiciles and who need, things like that, whatever it is that you need, start with these laws here, and then do affidavits, craft affidavits, and then do the forms. Okay, because we're doing the forms, our state is now using the system. Okay, our state is doing that because there is no other state that has the ability to do it, and then we make it so that what we say our subjects recognize. Because believe it or not, they want to assist because that's the reason they're here. They want to assist, but we have to speak a language that says first and foremost that we're the Lord of the land. There is no other landlord. That's what the affidavits do. And then we say, okay, now here is the Section 8 form from our state speaking into the system. Okay. And again, we looked at Section 8 because, see, some are turned off by Section 8 and the sound of it because it's been made to to look like or appear to be something that people who are poverty-stricken use, but that is the exact opposite. That's the opposite of what it was. That's the opposite of what it was meant for. The exact opposite. So we know that anything that we have been looking at in that last era that we just came out of was upside down when it comes to the Moors. And now we are the ones who have righted things, all of us through our demonstrations, putting that pyramid back where it belongs. Okay? So that is our suggestion for those who need domiciles. Again, start with these documents, the Constitution for the United States. Okay? Article 1, Section 8, the General Welfare Clause. Then Article 12 U.S.C. 95A, the second paragraph. And again, here's what that reads. Any payment, that means any, conveyance, transfer, assignment, or delivery of property or interest therein made to or for the account for the United States, and we've changed that. We've upgraded that to the word for. After the word account, it is for the United States, so that this matches our Constitution. Okay? So any payment made for the account for the United States or as otherwise directed pursuant, and we would direct that, pursuant to this section or any rule, regulation, instruction, or direction issued hereunder shall, to the extent thereof, be a full acquittance and discharge for all purposes of the obligation of the person making the same, and no person shall be held liable in any court for or in respect to anything done or omitted in good faith in connection with the administration of or in pursuance of and in reliance on this section or any rule, regulation, instruction, or direction issued hereunder. And here's what we would say to that, because it's important that we state this. Most Moors know this, but we are compelled to state it anyway because it's important. Everything that we do must be done in honor. So I've seen it many times before where, people would think that they were getting over and trying to slick and slide and do things slippery and then use more science when they want to, but then contracting here on the side and there and not being themselves, and it never works out well for them. We must be ourselves. And I will say this too about that. This past weekend, my personal experience with being ourselves, the ancestors actually literally showed me from start to finish how when we're being ourselves, that the system will come to our aid immediately. The system will come to our aid and do whatever needs to be done and make sure we're okay, make sure we have everything we need, and then we have to continue to be ourselves throughout that whole process. Okay, and one day soon, maybe sometimes later, I'll tell you what actually happened with regard to that. And then because my conveyance stopped on the side of the road this past weekend, so and the ancestors just showed us so many beautiful things about how not to panic when that happens, how not to worry, and then to just be ourselves when we're approached, be ourselves. And assistance is always there, and it is systemic assistance. So with regard to, there's a question in the chat about maintaining the domiciles. So in maintaining the domiciles, Empress Rosetta, the domicile has to first be properly declared from start to finish, and then you can use the system to maintain it. You can use the system to maintain it. So we spoke about Section 8 because it's any domicile. It doesn't even matter. It can be 10,000 square feet. It can be 500 square feet domicile. It can be a 1,200 or 1,500 or 2,000 square foot domicile. It can be a 5,000. It doesn't matter because the program states any housing, any domicile. Okay, and with that, you in your proper status are the owner, and then you use your person to get the maintenance done. Okay, so do the research, Empress and Moors, on that process, because, for example, with this domicile, if what the parts that we're using as domiciles, we can be because we're the owners, we can put the domicile in a Section 8 program and say, okay, let's let people who need domiciles, who go to the Section 8 process, use the domicile. Well, our person can use the domicile. Okay, so we are both the owner and the occupant. And then if anything needs to be done, we can use that program to get any repairs done, because Section 8, I believe it either reimburses for, I think it reimburses for anything that you get done. But again, different territories have different ways that is done, so research for your territory how it's done. But that's a national program, and that we've adopted in our sovereign state. Okay, so we have adopted all of the national programs: Social Security, retirement, Section 8, any of that, and we're elevating it to its proper status, because it was completely misused in the last era by those who don't really have the competence to issue and to govern those programs. Okay, so with that being stated, again, to your question, look at the program and see about how, and this is just one option, Empress. There are many other options for maintaining our domiciles. I will tell you that this domicile needs some maintenance, because we've held off on anything thus far until we can sort out how do we do that and remain in our sovereign status and do things lawfully and legally. Okay, and we're going to talk about that lawfully and legally thing, because there's also another way that we can claim domiciles and things, and we'll talk about that if the Section 8, the constitutional Section 8 program, again, that is general welfare for the United States. That means that we should be faring very well, okay? And proper spelling of that word would be well and fair, F-A-R-E. Okay, general welfare for the United States. Now, and then there's a way to get the domiciles using the Common Defense Clause, to pay debts and provide for the Common Defense Clause. Here, general welfare for the United States. So I'm going to open the floor, the table rather, because this is a round table. And if we have any questions or comments or anything of that nature. Okay. And you can ask your questions if you have them. Islam, Empress.
I have a specific question. Has State Farm been one of the corporations that's been nationalized?
They all have. Every one of them. All we have to do is state it and make sure you do a lien. Okay?
All right.
All corporations have been nationalized. We have to speak to them now competently. Okay? All resources have been nationalized. Everything's been nationalized. But that happens by way of us speaking directly to them. And
Pauline's making you so proud, putting you back on Section 8.
We also
Pauline's
do.
making you so proud.
We also, when we do things with regard to our sovereign status, make sure that we do it from the perspective of the United States. Okay, so with regard to, for example, this domicile, the United States is the owner. Let me make sure, and we'll have to do some more talking and study and how we want to do this.
You mean your domicile on my land, Pauline?
Also,
your domicile?
The United States is also, the United States owns it, which is all of us, and then we would be the occupants, but we're also the United States, you see, and we're enforcing the Constitution with regard to the domicile. And that's another something. We hold office in our United States, at our United States, and as the offices, we are the offices. Actually, we don't just hold them, we are the offices. And with us being the officers for the United States, we're issuing Section 8 out, and that's when you say has everything been nationalized, or has certain corporations been nationalized, they're all under the United States, which is us. And then we just speak to them and demonstrate our sovereign status, and voila, nationality of that corporation manifests. I got some really proof and evidence of that just yesterday with my conveyance stopping on the side of the road. And I actually got to see everything work the way it was supposed to work. Everything worked, and I learned some things too in speaking with the subjects who came to assist prior to my consort getting there. So, and we're going to show a little bit of that too, because the system is a beautiful system. We need one among us too, though. We want to add to what's already being done, okay, and what we've adopted, okay. Anything that we need is already nationalized. We just have to speak to it, use our affidavits, and then craft a form.
Where's that Range Rover, Pauline? You wouldn't need a hoopty to drive around if you had your Range Rover.
So that is everything that we need, we have. And I'll say this about that, because even though they're clowns in here, they make good points. Our ancestors, see, the stopping of my conveyance on the side of the road yesterday was to prepare me for the Range Rover coming, because had it stopped on the side of the road, I would need to know exactly what I learned yesterday. Our ancestors are preparing us to receive all that is ours. So in some really kind of strange way, I appreciate the clowns that come in here and say things like that, because they actually they make some good points in terms of what's happening. We just have to have the eyes to see that we're being prepared to receive all that is ours. And the ancestors don't want to give it to us and then have it taken away. They want us to know how to govern it properly. And yesterday was a great, it was frustrating while I was in it until I calmed my energy. And the minute I calmed my energy, the system kicked in and everything worked the way it was supposed to. So our ancestors, everything is already ours. We have to know how to govern it first competently before they will say, okay, here you go. And we actually are the ones that will be saying, here you go. You know, so we're not in the least bit in a hurry, because we know, and we do get that some Moors, need domiciles. That's why we're saying, go ahead and demonstrate. Go ahead and demonstrate. Do it honorably, and then go from there. Because that's just going to show the ancestors within you that you're ready for a domicile. Okay? And as you can see, we're being shown how to do that from a place of taking our time and looking at the processes and things like that, to the point where, when the domiciles are here, because we will be the ones who say, okay, we're ready. And we will show that we're ready by demonstrating it and it happening. That is how all of this works. What we're going through right now is transition. And that's what transition looks like, is study ourselves, and then study what our ancestors put in place so that nothing can ever be taken from us, ever. So with that being said, are there any questions or comments about the domicile piece? We actually have to demonstrate our way into it. We have to demonstrate our way into everything. The same way that we've demonstrated our way into being free and, demonstrating our way as courts. There's something in the chat saying, talking about Habitat for Humanity. Yes, indeed. The comment is Empress Chitali looking at Habitat for Humanity. She says they do volunteer construction and repairs, and she said we need to lean them first, of course. Of course, absolutely. Habitat for Humanity is working from Article 1, Section 8, too. They absolutely are, or were. They were working from Article 1, Section 8, talking about the general welfare. And that is how you access the Treasury also with regard to the programs. Using the General Welfare Clause and the Common Defense Clause in Article 1, Section 8 is where appropriations begin. That's why it was called Section 8. Appropriations start there. And then money was appropriated from the Treasury because of what was in the Constitution. And then all of these other programs manifested so that people could be taken care of and be so that they can get onto their own 2 feet. Because see, these types of programs are in assistance of commerce. Okay, commercial titans who do earth-shaking commerce use these types of programs to assist while they're doing what they're doing. Okay, so, and I will say that the foreigners who came here are a prime example of that. The foreigners that come here, they have a map, a road map of the programs to get them from point A to B to C to D to E to F to G, and so on and so forth. And they will come here, and we know this, with nothing, and then use the system to go all the way up to being Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or someone like that. Okay? And those are subjects too. They were simply acting out how our system works so well and we have to know our own system too. Okay. So Islam, and that's another reason why United States citizenship for them was so important. Islam.
Okay, so you might have touched on this already, but I was thinking about, the rental agreement and peace, and I know that paying rent, we would be paying ourselves and everything, but I was thinking of it more in a domicile situation. Since you own the property, for me, I'm like, is there another word besides rent? Because it would be more servicing with the management company to provide services for the upkeep and the maintenance of the property and the unit. So just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
You want to know another word for renter, or a better word?
Like a better word, because I'm like, I mean, if you own the property,
Beneficiary.
Okay, so like a beneficiary agreement with our management company,
yes.
Perhaps?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Islam. Any of the words that we use in our court action at the beginning of this call? Any of those words? In fact, let me roll back up there. We are the fiduciaries, receivers, secured creditors, executors, trustees, ministers, possessors, and beneficiaries. So any of those.
Great. Okay, and then I was looking at the UCC filing statement. I was wondering, when we filled our form out, are we putting the full amount, like the 100 million? Or if, like, for example, I'm working on sending, an amount for accepting the value for what, the former management saying I owed, right? So I'm like, can I just put that value?
I would be specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
We know we have a trust that has 100 million or more. It actually has an unlimited amount. We say 100 million because for the sake of accountability. But we want to be specific with regard to the documentation that we send, so that it will match up in the system what we're actually talking about, the debt, whatever that. It's proof of indebtedness, but it's proof of indebtedness of their indebtedness, not ours. So we want to show exactly that amount as proof of both indebtedness and payment. Because you're actually you're accepting the payment for that.
Okay, that's good. And the other piece I'm working on is to accept the value, but as a refund, because I had a dream that it could be done as for the rents that I did pay, not knowing that I didn't have to pay. So I just want to put that out there as well.
Yes. Where any of these payments and things, and it's right there on the screen. Any payment, any conveyance, transfer, assignment, or delivery of property or interest therein. See, we're putting it onto the account for the United States, so that when and we have some information that the ancestors have given us with regard to the best ways to do that, because we actually have to implement that all the way across the board, and then we have to help other people implement it as well. So when you're talking about, we are actually going to at some point have service centers, debt and creditor service centers, where it'll be a United States service center, where all we're doing is removing the debt or countering the debt with credit, like what you're doing, like what you're speaking of, is making it so that there is a credit that matches the debt so that they cancel out. Because that's really what it is. That's what cancellation of debt really is. is putting a credit there so that that debt is not floating out there looking for some place to go. And that's the purpose of putting it, making the amount specific.
Islam, thank you.
Yeah. So there'll be a creditor side and a debtor side of and I'm not even doing that on purpose, but there's a creditor side and a debtor side to the transaction, and we're going to be implementing, making sure that they balance. So are there any other questions about that particular portion of our Congressional Assembly? Islam. So now, many times when we're having our Congressional Assemblies, we have to distinguish between which United States we're talking about or which Pauline Denise Ritchie we're talking about, because there were fakes who created a dead one. We're the living. And there is a USC code that we want to put on the public record and elevate it to make it the law. And regarding that way, as we move forward as the creditors, that there is a distinction between us and the fakes. It's 15 USC 1125. It's entitled False Designations of Origin, False Descriptions, and Dilution Forbidden. Okay, it's a civil action, and we did tweak it just a little bit, not tweak it, we edited it a little bit in our favor so that it states what we want to state in our sovereign state, okay, in the Empire State. Civil action. No person shall, on or in connection with any goods or services or any container for goods, use in commerce any word, term, name, symbol, or device, or any combination thereof, or any false designation of origin, false or misleading description of fact, or false or misleading misrepresentation or representation of fact, misleading representation of fact, which is likely to cause confusion or to cause mistake or to deceive as to the affiliation, connection, or association of such person with another person, or as to the origin, sponsorship, or approval of his or her goods, services, or commercial activities by another person, or in commercial advertising or promotion, no person shall misrepresent the nature, characteristics, qualities, or geographic origin, that's important, of his or her or another person's goods, services, or commercial activities. Such action shall be liable in a civil action by any person who believes that he or she is or is likely to be damaged by such action. Furthermore, it says, number 2, as used, one moment. Yes, we do have some red alert subject matter coming up. Part 2, as used in this subsection, the term any person includes any state, instrumentality of a state, or employee of a state, or instrumentality of a state acting in his or her official capacity. Any state and any such instrumentality, officer, or employee shall be subject to the provisions of this chapter in the same manner and to the same extent as any non-governmental entity. So no one else can be pretending to be the creditors who are the United States except us. We are they. The debtors are debtors. The creditors are the creditors. The debtors are at United States Corporation Company on paper only, fraudulent paper at that, because it started in fraud, therefore it stays in fraud. And we are the United States Corporation Company, which is actually an instrument that we use. So again, we're not a corporation. Our government is not a corporation. Our government has a commerce ministry, which is a special purpose vehicle under the authority of our government, okay, because corporations cannot govern. Okay, so as it states here, number 3, in a civil action for trademark infringement, and it said trade dress infringement. When we say trademark, we mean colors, shapes, sizes, any of that. Just one moment. There's a question in the chat. We'll address that question shortly. Islam. And I'll actually open the table so that the Moors can address the question. In a civil action for trademark infringement under this chapter for trademark, not registered on the principal register. Okay. The principal register is the public record. Okay. The public, anything that we have placed on the public record in a civil action for trademark infringement under this chapter for trademark not registered on the public register. The person who asserts trademark protection has the burden of proving that the matter sought to be protected is not functional. In other words, if someone uses a trademark and that trademark makes it so that their use of it makes it so that the other party cannot function. Okay, they have to prove that they can't function because someone else used their trademark. Okay, they can't be bankrupt because bankrupts are not supposed to even be functioning. They're not supposed to be contracting or anything of that nature until they fix their bankruptcy. Okay, and the creditors can do whatever they choose to do with regard to liquidation, with regard to stating how the bankruptcy is to be handled and stating how, what happens from that particular point. Okay. Importation. Any goods marked or labeled in contravention of the provisions of this section shall not be imported into the United States or admitted to entry at any custom house for the United States. The owner, importer, or consignee of goods refused entry at any custom house under this section may have any recourse by protest, and that's what all that protesting in the streets was about, or appeal that is given under the customs revenue laws, or may have the remedy given by this chapter in cases involving goods refused entry or seized. So with that being stated, it is our courts who make that determination because it's our state. Okay.
Islam.
Islam nobility.
You may want to take a look at non-governmental.
Mm-hmm.
You may want to correct that that's your intention is to leave it like that. Non-governmental.
It was my intention to leave it that way.
Okay, great. All right.
So this is whether they are governmental or non-governmental. And when we say non-governmental, that's persons, in all caps, acting as individuals. Okay. Again, when they say all created equal, that's a mistranslation. It's actually all persons are created equal. Why is that? Because behind every person is the origin of that person. A person is a tool. A person is a servant. A person is a subject. A person is a tool that is used. You then have to determine proper identification of the parties means who's behind that person. Who put that person on the public record? What is their status on the land? That's where the difference comes in at Islam. That's where the difference comes in at. So, the person that is Washington, which is the land, that's a land person, which is different from a fake dead corporate person, corpse. Washington is a living person. The state of Washington is a piece of paper that was previously pretending to be some living something. It's a corpse, a dead corpse. So the reason why I left it there too, and that's a great question, Justice Eileen, is because when the citizens, let's just use that as an example, when the citizens were pretending to quote unquote sue the state, they had equal footing in the court, and then someone had to speak and say, okay, someone had to judge that. Okay, equal footing in the court where states and persons are concerned. Okay, so persons who are on the land that is Washington have equal footing with Washington in all capital letters. So then we have to say, okay, who is it now? Who's behind that person? Who put that person on the public record? Are they original and indigenous to the land? What are they? What's going on there? And our courts make that determination. Our courts are the ones who make that determination. So there's something going on here in the chat that I'm trying to access here.
Karima Bay, Virginia Territory, Islam Wars.
Islam. Just one moment. So when you're talking about status and just one moment, let me make sure. Okay. So non-governmental, there is equity there. Okay, there is equity or equality rather, where the all caps are concerned. However, equality then moves to equity when you look behind the person and see, okay, who put that instrument?
Hey, Pauline, where's that Sharif uniform that you ordered about 30 to 60 days ago?
Whoever put it on the record is the one who gets to, their status is included in that particular action.
Pauline, you're so fucking full of shit. Pauline, where's your...
So, with regard to non-governmental entities, they're the same. But if it's someone who's not original indigenous to the land, that has to be looked at. That's looked at from the very beginning. And I will say this, that those that have been previously acting as courts, they did that from the very beginning. They did that. They identified parties based on what the parties said and did and put on the public record. And that's why, I see there's a case that they're acting out where there's this one who is copper. He's copper toned, copper skinned, so he may be a Moor, but he doesn't know it, and he's trying to defend himself from apparently what they're saying is that he during a Christmas parade or something, he ran over and killed 6 persons. Well, he's doing things to try and stop them from, convicting him, his person. In our courts, we would first look at who's who. Who's who? Who are the injured parties and who is the one who is claimed to have, who is purportedly, it has been shown that he injured someone. We look at that first and then we go from there, because the outcome will be different for different ones. We've seen the foreigners acting that out, that the outcome is different depending on who the status. And it's kind of like what we were saying from the beginning. And no, Moors don't get to be in dishonor and get away with being in dishonor if there's something that happens that results in injury and all of that. Moors have to, for example, someone running someone over with a conveyance, we have to see, okay, first, who are they? Who are the parties? And what happened then after that? Where were they? First, it's who are the parties. Second, it's where were they, because territorial jurisdiction says, where are you? Were you in the United States Corporation Company according to what you put on the public record? Is that where your contracts came from to drive? And then third, then you get into subject matter and what happened and, the circumstances behind that and then what the outcome will be. But our status must be first and foremost, because it changes things. Our status changes the outcome of things that happen. When Moors are in honor, it absolutely, when I saw that yesterday, it just changes the outcome altogether. Yesterday, when my conveyance stopped on the side of the road, the ancestors showed me where I still have to work on some programming, because there was some fear that came, and then I had to calm the fear and calm my energy, and there was another Moor with me, and the minute we did calming exercises and meditation, it was the ancestors kicked in immediately. And when I say immediately, we had closed our eyes and we were doing our meditation, and I opened my eyes to thank her for meditating with me. And in the rearview mirror, the help was right there. Right there. And I hadn't made a call. I hadn't called anyone or anything. And so when we're in honor, the ancestors will show us how the system works for us. It will work. And I didn't have to put out any fiat whatsoever, because I wouldn't have done it anyway. I would have walked home first. I didn't have to put out any sovereign credits at all or anything to get everything taken care of. So it's amazing how as we're in honor and we remain in honor, the ancestors will let everything come together for us. So with that being said, part 4, red alert subject matter. So when I got home from my travels yesterday, I began to study for today, because I generally study a few days in advance for the congressional sessions that we have, assemblies that we have. And something came to mind, and so I have a question to ask. How many of you on this call have actually seen and read any portion, even one or two words, out of a police department manual? Has anyone seen and read from a police department manual? If you have, if you'll just speak regarding that.
Islam. No, I haven't read a manual, but I recently read an article from a police magazine about policing by consent.
Wow. Policing by consent. Wow. That's wow.
And it's a national magazine.
Policing by consent. I mean, there's so much we could say about that. Because, see, before it was what we would term manufactured consent. That means it wasn't real. We would have never consented or assented to being policed by foreign matter and etc., by those who should not be in those offices. We would have never consented and assented to that had we known. But that was by design, because we knew before we came here. So, wow. So, in my study, I was led to actually look at a police department manual. Islam Empress.
Islam. I have read parts of it when doing corrective processes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not easy to get. I could say that.
Mm-hmm.
It was when I was in Kent, Washington, and we had to do some reform for the police department as a community oversight team and corrective action. So, yes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful, Empress. We must connect. So, yes, we must. Islam nobility.
Yes, Azim again. I have never read nor reviewed any contents of the police manual. For one thing, it's noted in general, whereby each so-called policyholder is mandatory to study the state and federal constitutions, and on top of that, they've developed a special class to fast-track them to pass that exam. That they groomed them, let's say, slightly, giving them the edge to make certain they pass that exam, and they get them back into the system on the streets. Islam.
Would you agree that we must have the same knowledge?
I agree.
Islam. That is what we're doing. That is what we're doing. And we're going to go ahead and put a link in the chat to the Seattle Police Department manual. Islam Empress.
I had found, and I've been digging around on my computer now to find it again, but I had found the Jamaica Constabulary Force Manual on the Principles and Practices of Community Policing in Jamaica.
There it is. That's it too. That's it too. That's absolutely the same thing.
All right. I have to say I haven't really looked at it, but I found it looking for something else and put it in a file for future reference. So.
Yeah. You know, in looking at the Seattle Police Department manual that I've been looking at, when I get information like that, I actually I can only read 1 or 2 pages from the beginning, and then I have to put it down. Because so many thoughts and things about what we know already come to mind that I have to organize my thoughts before I can read it further. Because there's so much in it, so much that we knew already, that we needed to know and make it public and elevate it so that we activate it for our own state, and just affirmations of what we've known all along. But we wanted to see it in writing and see. So this is the first thing that I saw, because I went straight to the part in the manual, the Seattle Police Department manual, about how to deal with foreign nationals. I wanted to see, what they say about that. So let me go ahead and put this link in the chat. There's actually a couple of ways to get there. Let's see. This is one. They actually put it in a different place. They put it into their DMS system because there were so many changes that were happening so quickly. Shay Klein L., you've put something in the chat there that's very interesting. Can you speak a little bit about that? Because, we saw that in the book to a degree. Islam nobility.
I think the policyholders of the Constitution of the police are supposed to maintain the peace, not arrest. And within the Constitution of they sign, they are not allowed to handcuff nor cannot nor detain anyone because it's not part of their policy. Each officer carry a policy number. And this policy number is responsible for the individual policyholder, which is the individual police that is working. So he's subject to be brought to be as a criminal because he violated his policy and his oath.
Yeah. Under
that Constitution, and his number is also a policy for the people in the community to protect them, not to arrest them or to shoot them, so whatever they're doing is violation of their policy.
Yeah.
And majority of this time, there was Warrants, the Royal Police Force, but when they changed, they become Seattle Police Force, the Seattle Police Force, so they try to change their policies and their laws and their oath. That's how they actually getting away with the crimes they committed. But most police are policyholders. They are not. They are peacekeepers. They're supposed to maintain the peace. They're supposed to help you with your groceries, your car, wherever you need help, but they're not supposed to arrest anyone. They have no right, no authority to arrest you. They don't have what's called they don't have a claim on you. For the arrest you, they need a claim by a judge in some form because there's no crime unless you commit a murder. There's no crime on this earth unless you commit a murder or destroy somebody's property. The rest is just bylaws, acts, and different ways to create economics and create money system and bonds. amongst the whole system. So the policing just because everybody is police, the court, and jail all works together. Each there's different bonds that is being created on that individual. So it's economics, and policing is supposed never to deal with economics. The conflict of interest, the police should never have nothing to do with the courts nor the prisons. But in the system, it all bind together to create commerce. So there's a conflict of interest. So police is for it. It's a whole false system.
Islam. So what they did was they went from it being a public service to a private corporation action for commercial purposes. And that's where those changes took place. And they didn't tell anyone that, oh, we're not public anymore. We're not protecting and serving the public. They didn't tell anyone that, oh, they're now a private corporation who is looking straight to just make commerce, do commerce. They didn't tell anyone that they changed. But let me tell you why they changed, because see, some want to get mad at that. But we can't be mad if, we didn't delegate authority and then we stop doing our job. See, governing is determining who has the authority. And see, we can't get mad at that because if we didn't give them a delegation of authority, they had to go corporate because they didn't hear from the government. We did not give them a delegation of authority. That's why every time Moors went into those fake courts saying, where's your delegation of authority? They never had one, except the fact that that Moor is standing there. So we can't even be mad. But what we can do is get governing so that the authority stays where it's supposed to stay, where it's always been. Because see, if we hadn't delegated and deputized anybody to be peace officers, then they're like, well, we're not going to leave the land just, we're not going to let everybody just run harry-carry. Let's just be capitalized. Let's capitalize, and then we'll be policy enforcers that way. And we'll just capitalize the word police and put it on the side of the car. And that way we can do whatever we want, and people won't know that because they don't know what capitalism really is, they won't say anything about the fact that the words are in all capital letters, and who is it that's behind that? Who's behind that being a corporation? Is it the living or the dead? If it's the dead, they don't have jurisdiction over the living. And in fact, they're the criminals if that's the case, but the living must stand and be ourselves. So it says here, this is one of the just the first thing that I pulled, and I had to actually just sit down somewhere and just absorb what I was reading. It says here, the general policy regarding contacts with foreign nationals. The department recognizes that local law enforcement has no role in immigration enforcement. That means that if someone is foreign to that department, then they have no jurisdiction over them. Or if that department, and in our case, if that department is foreign to us, then stand down. It says here, unlawful presence in the country is a civil matter and not within the department's jurisdiction. So now now we think, okay, Well, why is it that they've been picking Moors up and picking Moors up and picking Moors up, and the Moors are saying they're Moors, but they pick them up? There's a whole plethora of reasons why things like that happen. But the first reason is going to always be everything hinges on proper identification of the parties. And if Moors have contracts with the dead and with the one that's behind that capitalism, then you can speak all day, but all they're hearing is a citizen trying to claim something. You can speak all day and say, I'm a Moor, I'm a Moor, I'm a Moor, but you got 1,000 contracts out there, or one contract out there that you have not terminated with them. The benefits, and I saw this yesterday, I was confused by it initially, but now that I've had a productive sleep cycle, I can see where the system works. It's supposed to work for the Moors. But we have to be ourselves and then use the system the way it's meant to be used. Unlawful presence in the country is a civil matter. Well, whose court has been dealing with those civil matters? Has it been a corporate court, or has it been the living? Article 3.
Corporate.
That's why the Moors have had the issues. That's why we had the issues we had. Because once you get past identification, then all types of craziness happens if we're not properly identified. Okay? Unlawful presence, Islam nobility.
Have you ever noticed, I don't know if you have personally experienced it or not, let's say, for instance, you're driving along, the policyholder turns on the lights, you pull over, first he walks to the window, sometimes they'll speak, sometimes they don't, but they never fail to ask for insurance and identification. Now, visualize this. When you reach over into your glove box, you give him those 2 documents, you hand it to him, he or she. That policyholder will look at that identification card and guess what he'll say after that. Do you have any idea? Think about it. If you ever been, have you ever just give us some thought.
Yes.
Okay.
The fact that you're reaching over there instead of doing a court action, because the court action is going to properly identify who's in control of that action right there.
Correct. And secondly, he or she, the policyholder, will never fail to ask you, what is your name?
Court action.
What? Yes. What is your name? They're never going to fail to do that. And when you respond, he has just captured you into their jurisdiction.
Yep. Yes. I thought about all of that when I was on the side of the road yesterday.
I
thought about all of that. And you know what I did? I said, let me calm down and just remember my court action language if that happens.
Yeah, that's true.
And and as it turns out, I was approached by Washington State Department of Transportation, but it was not one of them, a policy enforcer. It was the ones that come, and if you're out of gas, they put gas in there. If you need a jump, they give you a jump, or something like that.
But they'll never ask you. They'll never ask you to identify yourself. You're right. They're there for service only.
Not one time was I asked that. Not one time.
They will never will. They will never will. They are service oriented to the point.
We actually had an in-depth conversation because I was learning some things from him. It was a brother, and I was learning some things from him because I already know that nothing happens. See, the conveyance that I was in is fairly new. It should not have stopped on the side of the road. So I knew the ancestors were saying, we got something we want to show you, and this is the only way we can show it to you. So I was like, okay, bring it. What's happening? And they did it. And they did. They did. And we're going to share a little bit of that with you also, what they showed us. Something that can help Moors when we're on the side of the road to identify one another. Islam, nobility.
Actually, when they turn on the sunrise and they approach people, we should start asking them who activate them, who give the permission to be activated, because before these officers approach you, the activation for them to approach you is supposed to come from the so-called judge or someone superior over them to activate them to approach the person in a car or anything. So what they do is them activate themselves through their policy. As you said, they're supposed to be, the officers that approach you done the right thing, because as their right job, they're supposed to only assist people. They're supposed to be as citizen police or corporation police. They're supposed to be the police of the peacekeepers within the land. In the land, not of the land, but within the land.
Yeah.
In their corporation.
That could be included in your court action that you do. Yeah. That could be included in your. I did have to do a court action, but it wasn't on them. It was on the tow truck driver. I did have to do one on him, and it was so subtle that he responded beautifully to the court action. Beautifully. He responded the way he was supposed to respond to the court action. It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
There's Article 5 court there, David. Article 5 court of Commerce under the Queen's sanction. That was their law based off of, but they try to make it seems to be American law, but it's a constitutional law of our time. But they just add things that add bills and acts. So everything there comes that the policy holders or the policemen come with is all acts that they created.
Yeah.
Not laws.
And that's why we have to make the law. We're making law. That's what this Congressional Assembly is all about. Is they can't make law. They're not the bays, the L's, the Al's, the Ollies, and the days. We are. And so that's what this call is all about. Is we look and see what we need and we elevate it to the law. And that's what we were intending to do right up here with regard to this one, 15 USC 1125. And please take a moment to look at that while we're going through this red alert piece, so that again it's 15 USC 1125. Please take some time to take a look at that, and we can put it into law now or next or at our next call, whichever this assembly decides, whatever this Congress decides. So this right here, unlawful presence in the country, is a civil matter not within the department's jurisdiction. Now, when they say department's jurisdiction, notice they put the word the department at the beginning of the sentence. It has a capital D, and down here it has all lowercase letters. So it's not within the jurisdiction of any department. And then employees will not inquire about any person's citizenship or immigration status. There are no exceptions to this policy, and this part is important, Morris, unless approved by the chief of police or designee. We are the chiefs of police, and designees, we don't have any designees right now. We don't have any. We're the police. We're the police chiefs. Subjects are subjects. They're not police chiefs. Okay. So when Nobility, when you were speaking about how our brother at Canaan Land, when you were speaking about how the policy enforcers there are not arresting persons, that's something that we said no delegation of authority there. No delegation of authority. So this is some of the things that we have seen and know. Civil matters are not police matters. So, for example, there was a Moor who spoke about how he went to a conveyance dealership, and he was engaging there because he had sent some documentation, and ultimately they ended up threatening to call the policy enforcers, and that has happened to a couple of Moors, where their demonstration started out civil, as a civil matter, but then somehow, somewhere along the way, it changed to a police matter, supposedly, quote unquote, and I'm putting that in air quotes because they're not police. And our thing is, let's make sure we point out where the change happened. Okay, civil matters are judicial matters. And we're not talking about citizens and civil rights. We're not talking about that per se. We're talking about matters that are not criminal matters. Okay? They're called civil matters because our all caps is the only ones that can engage in civil or judicial matters or even criminal matters, and we don't condone that, and that's not what our persons do. But those matters are things that are done by persons in all capital letters. So with that being said, once a matter or an event has been changed from a civil matter to a criminal matter by the finding of a crime by the judge in the matter, then the matter becomes criminal. Well, that happened to the Moors who went, there's one or two who went to conveyance dealerships, and they had some documents that they had, and they were speaking with the subjects there, and the policy enforcers were called. And of course they were not arrested, but because the policy enforcers know their job now too, because we've been standing Moors. We've been standing, and because we are the police chiefs, then that, and we stated probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that the more we demonstrate, the less Moors are going to be taken. Okay? We stated that on the public record, and you know what? That's the truth. We have Moors who are stating that already on the public record, how policy enforcers were called, but they weren't going to go, they didn't take the Moor. Why? Because they know we're the real police chiefs. We just have to become more competent at stating that. Okay? So with that being said, judicial actions on the spot by Moors is mandatory. This is why we open everything with a court action. Any time we go anywhere, and for example, I was getting my court action language ready in case a quote unquote state patrol policy enforcer came up, because we already know that in the last era, they would come and start investigating a crime immediately. Okay? Well, this era is so different from that. It is so different from that, where when my conveyance stopped and we did we sat there for a little while, and then we did our energy work. And as soon as I opened my eyes, the one who comes to assist, to put gas if you need gas, to give you a jump if you need a jump, pulled up in a truck that it looked like a tow truck, but it wasn't a tow truck. It was a work truck of some kind, I guess. I don't know. I didn't pay that much attention to what the truck looked like. I was looking at the writing on it. And he literally did what would be done at Washington, the land, because that's where we were. We were on the land. We are always on the land. And so when the subject came up, when the servant came up, the public servant came up, he was so helpful, so helpful. He even put gas in the conveyance, and it didn't need it, but he said, just in case, here, the worst that can happen is you got an extra, some extra gas in your conveyance. That's the worst that can happen with me putting it in there, because he had to serve in some manner. And again, I hadn't even called him. But maybe I did in the spirit realm, though. Okay. And in fact, our energy work, I'll have to retract that. Our energy work did call him. The meeting is unlocked. I see your thing in the chat. Just one moment. Just one moment. Islam. So I began to, in my studies, I started thinking about, he absolutely came to help. But something that he showed me before we go into arrest warrants, because the arrest warrants piece, do you know how powerful we are, and do you know how we can use this arrest warrant piece? Because it answered a question that I've had for about a year now about the arrest warrants. So, and it affirmed what we've done with regard to the black person that they created, that they were claiming. Okay. Let me show you first. Let me show you first with regard to being my conveyance stopping the other day, or yesterday rather, on the side of the road. When the servant came, okay, we established who we were simply by, first in the spirit realm, we did it with our energy. And then we established who we were by our language and what came out of our mouths. Because he was friendly, quote unquote. He was friendly. And so even when subjects and servants are friendly, that is no reason not to be ourselves. That's no reason to let our guard down and not govern. And so we smiled and spoke and talked, but we had already properly identified ourselves first. So
how come you haven't taken back First Avenue off of my land, Pauline?
As he was doing what he was doing. Just one moment, y'all. Hold on 1 second. Let me. As he was doing what he was doing, and we were talking, and I found out that the state patrol, first of all, he was different from Washington State Patrol, so to speak. They have the same boss, which is us. And this showed me too that they are absolutely in alignment with the Constitution when they come to assist. He he showed me how at one point he said he asked me if he could put something on my conveyance that would let any state patrol that's going by know that he had been there to assist already and that they did not need to stop. Okay? So I thought about it, and the answer, and my first inclination was no, I don't need any markers on this conveyance that don't state who we really are. But then the ancestor said, just listen, like. And so I said, I don't mind that, because I wanted to see what it was. And what it was a lime green piece of tape. Let me show that piece on here. Here it is right here. It was a lime green piece of tape, like what's on the screen. And so we talked about the lime green piece of tape, and he said that if State Patrol sees it, they will know that he came and that everything is okay. Okay. Or if they see it on a conveyance and nobody's in the conveyance, what they'll do is pull the conveyance onto the side, off the side of the road, and take it, to safety. Or in other words, he was saying that this thing would be a custody, and he didn't notice what he was saying, but I knew because I know the law, that this is a custody instrument, that they can take custody of your conveyance if you let them put this on there, and that's the way I took it, which is, it's okay because it's necessary sometimes if there's an accident and the conveyance needs to be pulled off the interstate, then we get that. We get it, that they put this on there, and then they will know that, okay, that one's been dealt with. Let's move it over to the side because this is one of the ones that was in the accident or whatever. We know why they do it. It's a good system. But then he put it on there, and then when he left, I took it off because I said, okay, now I know. Now I don't have to have this on there. Because I do know what it means. It doesn't, see, he said that they wouldn't stop, but I knew they would. So I did a little experiment. But another something he said was that the State Patrol, when a policy enforcer, State Patrol, sees a conveyance on the side of the road, if it doesn't have this or an orange one, then they will stop and they'll put an orange piece of tape on the back tag of the conveyance or hang it out the window so that other state patrols passing by will know that they already did something with this. They already processed it in. They got the tag number. They put all of that. Okay. And again, that's a helpful thing when the law is honorable, like they were yesterday. And so when he left, because he let me use his phone, and I called my consort because my phone didn't have any internet service there. So I called my consort, and then I waited, and I took it off of my conveyance and put it in my purse because I said I'm gonna hold on to this so that I can explain this because we can use that system. And so I took it off, and then I just watched. And about maybe 10 or 15, maybe a little longer, maybe 30 or 45 minutes later, I'm not sure exactly how long it was between the time he left and me taking this off until the time that a State Patrol policy enforcer, quote unquote, and I'm going to call them subjects in the office of, or subjects subjects in the office of, because they absolutely did what subjects should do. When he passed, he came and my conveyance was sitting at one of the exits. It wasn't going up onto the exit. It was sitting at the exit as if it would go back onto the interstate. And he went up that exit and he did not stop. So it's like, okay, I don't have to do a court action on him today because He didn't see this thing on my conveyance, so that meant that don't stop. If you don't see it, don't stop. If you don't see it, don't stop. And I was glad that I took it off, because that proved to me further that when they put this kind of stuff on your conveyance, that it's a custody issue. That means that they've taken custody, basically, in some form. And so I didn't have anything to fear, because I would have just done another court action. And so this is what I was thinking, Morris, about our conveyances. From our perspective, I thought about all of the Moors who may not have had the assistance on the side of the road that they needed. But may I make a suggestion, and can we write this into law or vote it into law, that we all keep either a red piece of tape, or just the Moorish flag. And I'm hesitant about our flag, because our flag, I don't want our flag, everywhere. But our flag is so powerful, because I've seen Moors demonstrate with it in their conveyances. They put that flag out there and everybody step back. That we all at least keep a flag in our conveyance, or keep a red piece of tape, so that when other Moors see your conveyance, they will know. If it's pulled over on the side of the road, they will know to stop and check on their brother and sister or their conveyance to see if they're okay and if they need anything. So whenever we see our flag on the side of the road, or we see the red tape on the conveyance, that and I'm not saying don't take their tape. I'm not saying that, because they're subjects. They were absolutely in subject status yesterday. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. That's how the system is supposed to work for us. And so and for those who are still trying to come out of that system, I'm not saying don't use their tape. I didn't use it. I just wanted to see it. But what I am saying is make sure you have some red, something red, so that, or our flag. Now, my conveyance has our flags on the side of it. So, Moors passing by would automatically know that conveyance belongs to a brother or a sister who knows who they are. And, even for those that still think that they are Negro, black, colored, and African American, encourage them to keep something red in there. So that way we have a system where we know to stop for each other. And it's not that we don't want to help others, but you don't know who it is on the side of the road. Proper identification of the parties determines our actions and our behavior. Okay? We know when we see that okay, it's Moors. So let's stop and see if they need any help, if they need any water, if they need a cell phone, or if they need help in some way, or just someone to sit with them energetically, or whatever the case may be. That we just, keep something bright red, even if it's a bright red T-shirt that you can hang outside the window. For those who are still kind of wrestling a little bit with regard to more science, keep a bright red T-shirt. We'll stop for that too. On the side of the road, just knowing that you may need some assistance. Yes, Justice Amos put something in the chat with regard to that policy enforcer piece. When you read the manual, oh my word, Justice Amos, when you read the manual, they have a different name for them depending on what they're doing. In some of the manual, they call them employees, and employees don't have any authority. In the manual, it basically says that. And that whenever you say the word employees, you're not talking about the chief. That's how we know we're the chief. We're the police chief. It also says in the Seattle Police Department manual, like, for example, if they say something about officers, in general, they're not talking about the police chief. So they have those hierarchies written in to what they call each other. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I want to put a little bit more emphasis on it so that we know that our court actions are absolutely the right thing to say and do. And let me say this about our court actions and my demonstration from yesterday. When the tow truck came to get my conveyance, there was someone in the tow truck, and we won't say who the name, but you know we got the name because we did a court action on him because he was being a little disrespectful. And by disrespectful, I mean this. Now, he was sent on our orders. And so I said to him, do you have a card? Well, he didn't want to give me a card. So he started acting like he was too busy to stop and give me a card. And then he said, I need the key to the car. And so I withheld the key. And I said, when you get me a card, I'll give you the key. Because he was, and the first thing out of his mouth, Moores, was, well, I respect you. I'm just having to, I want to make sure that this is, you know, and la, 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 la. I don't want to hear it. You were given a command. And sure enough, he popped that card out there just as quick as he could. It's almost like the card appeared like magic. Because he told me at first that he would have to go into his conveyance, his truck, and get it, and la, 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 la. I didn't want to hear all of that. You don't get a key. And this whole thing does not commence until I get what you were commanded to give. And then he wanted to ask some questions. So, you know, court action. No, court action. I'm asking all the questions here. You have your orders and commands because we gave them. Before he got there, he had it all on his phone because that's the way the system works. And so he gave me the card and I gave him the key. He talked about how he, you know, I respect you. It's, you know, okay. And I got back into my my husband's conveyance. When we got back to this domicile, because the conveyance was brought here, because it would start and everything. It's just when I put it in drive, it wouldn't go. So we know there's something, I don't know, something going on with it. But
Islam
nobility.
The reason when you put it in drive and it go forward is because you need transmission fluid.
I love you.
Thank you. I love you too.
I knew it was something simple because everything else worked. Everything else worked. It has oil. It has all of that. Everything worked. It would start, and it would stay started if it was in neutral or whatever. But it wouldn't. It just, when I would put it in drive, it would shut off. And I knew it was something simple. I knew it wasn't the battery. I knew it wasn't any of that. So, but when we got here with the conveyance, he kept his eyes down, you know, and he did his job, and then he handed me the key, and I said thank you. And he got in his conveyance and left really hurriedly. We didn't have to sign anything or anything. He just did his job and went on about his way like he was supposed to. Because see, that, you know what that told me though, Morris? Because see, I'm not control or power hungry or anything. It's just that they did not respect the Moors here because of look at where we just came from. You know, the colonizing and all of that. And in that whole colonizing piece, the respect for the Moors had been set aside to a degree, to a great degree. And actually, let me rephrase that, because that's not true. They've always respected the Moors, but when we were running around calling ourselves blacks don't get any respect. And so by stopping, I stopped, as he was running around hooking up the conveyance and then wanting to ask questions in between, I just stopped all his actions and everything and said, "What is your name?" And the way I said it was from my governmental authority. And he told me, and then he looked down. And so then I began to speak, ask some questions because he was asking me questions that he had the answer in his phone, because we gave that beforehand. And so, and he was not with with Washington State, our state. He wasn't with our state. He's a subject in our state, but he was with a different organization, and so we had to establish our authority right there on the spot. And when we did that, from that point forward, there was nothing but honor and doing his job and doing what servants are supposed to do. And it just told me that it was just a matter of establishing respect. Just establish respect. Don't have to be rude. I didn't have to yell or anything. I just took a step back, looked him in the eye and spoke. And when I looked him in the eye and said, "What is your name?" like that, then everything changed for him. For him, it was the same for me. So it's just a matter of us Moors. We've put the law forth. Being ourselves establishes respect. Because he was trying to do a court action. I know that. He was trying to take custody of property by getting past. And it's like, no, I'm still the custodian, even though you have it on your truck. I'm still the custodian of that. And that Moors is where we where we have to continue to stand up. Is continue to establish our authority, even when the system is working, because it worked yesterday. It worked. It worked. But as it's working, we have to continue to establish our authority. Continue. And make sure that everyone knows that, wait a minute, you're serving here. You're not in control or custody of anything. Custody is important because of this whole warrant situation. So all matters are first deemed in the realm of that which is lawful or unlawful, which is civil. In other words, when proper identification of the parties is established right there on the spot, then it stays a civil matter. And policy enforcers and all of that don't have to be called, because proper identification of who's the master and who's the servant. And in every exchange, I don't care how lovely you feel about them, about who comes, they are serving. Okay? They're serving. And they have to know that they're serving and not governing. Because sometimes they think they're coming in an office. But no, the office belongs to you, to the Moors. And things remain civil when we do that. But where it becomes war and all of that is if they still think they're talking to someone who is their junior or under them. Just because you have a conveyance hooked up to your truck does not mean you have custody of it. We still have custody. It's ours. And you will do as commanded. And as soon as that was established, everything went back peaceful again. Everything was peaceful. There was no We didn't have to argue. I didn't have to raise my voice at all, not one time yesterday, with anyone that I was dealing with. It was just a matter of clarity, clarify. And a court action, my court actions these days start with, what is your name? Because for some reason, that question puts everyone back where they are supposed to be. I don't even have to say this is a sovereign ancient Article 3 Moorish American Al-Moroccan. I just immediately establish, what is your name? Because if you even have a name and they all do, and they all answer, then okay, now we know who's who. So great service on our land starts with a court action by the Moors. Just start with, what is your name? And why are you here? You're here because we commanded you to be here. And I didn't have to say that. What is your name was enough. Just with the energy that was put out there. So, that kept it from going from being something civil to me having to determine if there is a crime being committed here. Okay, to it moving into a criminal situation. We can keep it civil when we're dealing with citizens, public servants, subjects. It stays civil and it's not war because we've spoken. Proper identification has been established. I cannot stress that enough, Morris, because, and I'm not stressing it, I'm stating it. I can't state that enough. I cannot state it enough. We must start all actions with the subjects, with anyone, even if it's a waiter or waitress. What is your name? Now, when we were asleep, now think about this, Morris, when we were asleep, they would ask our quote unquote names, and we thought, oh, they really care about who I am. They want to know my name. That's awesome. Maybe they're going to write a good comment. They were doing a court action. They were doing a court action and establishing jurisdiction, and we thought it was cute. And because to us, I know I've worked in several industries previously. When I was working in the hotel industry and services, hospitality, very seldom would people even care what your name was. They just wanted you to serve, and I worked at the front desk at the Marriott, but and I could tell where it is and all of that, but I won't say. And, if someone asked your name, you thought, wow, they're genuinely interested in who I am. But that was not the case. They know the law. And they were establishing servitude. And in our sleep, we were servants. Here, in this capacity, of course, I am a servant as well. But it's different because we are at our own state. So that's why we say, are there any questions? And Morris could ask 1,000 questions, and we're not even, it can be a court action. It's still, it's kind of like in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 6, where you can't be questioned. The only time you can be questioned is when you're in a congressional setting. That's Article 1, Section 6. Look it up, Morris. No one is supposed to be questioning you ever, unless they are a part of the Congress and they're in the congressional session. That's Article 1, Section 6. Let me see. Let me. I'm going to go back through at some point and look and make sure, but I know for sure it's Article 1. I think. I'm going to have to look it back up. I pointed it out in a previous call. So, again, things always start out civil. until jurisdiction is established. And jurisdiction can be established, let's say, for example, I'll use this as an example because this has happened to several Moors previously, where if they're trying to do some eviction action, because that's a court action, eviction action. It matters whether you have contracts or not, because the system knows whether you have one or not. The system knows. That same system where people pay every month, and and I'm not saying don't pay. I'm just pointing to the system, because even in our system, we transfer credits. So we're not saying don't pay, but what we're saying is know that the system knows your status by what's in the system, and that system will flip the switch and say, should they be, like, who is it that's who's the government here and who's the servant? People claiming to own land and property, are they the government or are they the servant? Or I'm sorry, are they the heir or the servant? Who's who? Who is it? That is how all of that is established when you're speaking or when you put documents on the public record. Because see, again, if we never opened our mouths, the public record would speak. If we never said a word, the public record would speak. It's only when we speak that the public record takes a secondary seat. The public record yields to the word of the Moors, the word of the Lord, the Lord's words. Okay? And that's why sometimes Moors will say, well, I put all those documents on the public record and they still arrested me. Well, what did you say? And 101% of the time, they will have said something that where the documents had to take a back seat. Whereas if you don't say anything at all, they have to check the public record. Or if you do a court action, that's going to line up with what you put on the public record. It was just, it was very beautiful yesterday to see the system that I feared at one point, because I used to be scared of that whole thing. I used to be like, oh, I hope my conveyance makes it, because I am not, I'm not trying to entangle with that. And this was before we woke up, because we just didn't want to be bothered with that. Because even when we knew we were right, we had our driver's license and we had our insurance and all of that, we still did not want to lock horns with that system, because it was not meant for us. And then we woke up, and now we know that the system belongs to us, and it works for us. I'm telling you, that system, our system, works when we're in honor and when we state who we are properly. And then the ancestors will throw in a test every now and then and say, okay, you got the help you needed. Are you still yourself? Absolutely. Yes. So at the point of proper identification of the parties is where any conversation will switch from civil to criminal. And that goes for both sides. Once we properly identify the parties, and like we've identified ourselves and things like that, then everyone's actions takes a character. It takes on some energy. It takes on some energy. And then we get to say whether a crime has been committed there or not. For example, those that went to dealerships, and policy enforcers were called. There's just not many, but a few who have done that. It's because they were speaking a lot to the subjects, and the subjects went into that vernacular that they go into with those who they want to take jurisdiction over. And when they start going into that vernacular, generally that the language that they use is financial language. How are you going to pay for this? La 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 la. You wouldn't ask. They wouldn't ask, quote unquote, Bill Gates how he would pay for it. Why would they ask you that? Especially when your documentation says who you are. Why would they even ask? And that's why when we were in our sleep, they would say, if you have to ask the price, you can't afford it. Whereas we are great negotiators, we're great stewards of the estate now. And that's what we're talking about, is proper accounting, proper accountability. We tell them what it's worth and then accept it for value. And so our ancestors are showing us how to protect the things that we've claimed, because the things belong to us already. We just have to know how do we handle those things. And yesterday the ancestors showed me how our system is to work for us. And now we know what we have to do from this point forward in terms of making sure that everything that we do is in place, and so that when we need our system is there. So we get to determine whether something is civil or criminal. Okay. And there's a judge in every interaction. There's a judge. If there's more than one person in a room, there's a judge, and there's some commerce going on of any kind. If it's commercial, then one is a judge and the other is the subject or the servant. Always. In every commercial exchange, that is the case. One is the creditor and one is the debtor. Make no mistake about it. Those are the laws of commerce. There's never any equity there unless it's two Moors coming together to contract with each other. But with the past era and finishing up everything that happened there, when you go to the grocery store, and you go to the register, someone's going to be the judge, and someone's going to be the justice, and someone's going to be the debtor. And again, Morris, we're in transition, so everything does not have to happen today, although it is happening very quickly. Even as we stated, it's happening. Yes, Justice Sheikh Klein Bay put in the chat with regard to our suggestion earlier of keeping something red in your conveyance, and that goes for those who are not sure that they're Moors or whatever. Keep something bright red in your conveyance, whether it's in the trunk or whatever, that you can hang out the back of the trunk or hang out the window or put it up in the back window or put it, somewhere where it can be seen, so that if Moors are on the interstate, we can notice each other and help each other and assist one another. Because see, we're not excluding anyone, but we gotta get us straight first. We have to get our unity and our system straight first before we can help anybody else. Those who are here, the system's been working for them. We're glad that it's working for them because we get to see, okay, this is how it's supposed to work for us. And that became very clear to me between yesterday and today. But I will say this, I was really perplexed and confused. As the system was working, I was thinking about all the things we said. And the ancestor said, just keep thinking about that. There is no disconnect between us and our system that we put in place. There's no disconnect. That is how the system is supposed to work. No fiat was exchanged. They came without me even calling on a phone. Because in the spirit realm, that's where everything happened first, and then it manifested beautifully, by the way, very beautifully. And so, let's get something, keep it in, and I'll say this too, and please don't let this discourage you. You may say, oh, I'm the only Moor in my territory, at your territory. Listen, please know, Sheikh Klein L said it in the chat, the mark of red. Look at the story of Moses and the blood over the doorpost story about being in captivity, putting that blood over the doorpost, and the angel of death not stopping by there. Sheikh Klein Sheikh Klein Bay, I had not thought about it that way. I was just thinking in terms of we will know each other because of the red that's showing, because the others have a system. So let's have our system also, and our system can either work with their system or as our system. And I wouldn't hesitate, because even if you think you're the only Moor at that territory, you don't know who's passing through. And you don't know who the ancestors will send. And you don't know who will hear this and say, okay, well, whenever I see red, I guess it'll probably be one of those Moors, and so I'll just stop and see if they need some help. And the ancestors made it specifically that I was unable to call anybody so that I could see that help can come. Even if I don't lift a finger, help can come. Because as you all know, my phone demonstration is not finished. So I couldn't use my phone to call. And as soon as I opened my eyes, me and the Empress that was there with me, help was right in the rear view mirror. And so I was able to actually use our state's phone, Washington, the land, our state's phone, to call my consort, who came to the rescue. And I want to send a shout out to Big Ray for helping. Thank you so much, sweetheart. But we got to see how, the system worked. It was absolutely beautiful. So with that being said, Moors who even if you're not, if you think you're by yourself, you're really not. You're never alone. You're never alone. We are never alone. We're never alone. Help was there instantly. It had to be instantly, because as soon as we opened our eyes, there he was. And it wasn't my consort. It was Washington State Department of Transportation, coming to see, did you run out of gas? And Washington State being our Washington, because we've put everything, we've notified everyone, we put everything on the public record. You all know that we do these videos out on the public record, and our system worked the way it was supposed to. So we just had to get the one that we leaned most recently in order. And that was USAA. We had to get that one in order. And he got right in alignment like he was supposed to. So that was great. Just one moment. Let me access my web controls here. Yeah, Washington State Patrol uses orange, so we Moors will use red if that is okay. Moors, are we in agreement to use the mark, which is red, over our doorposts and protect our property as we go through this time that we're going through? If you would, yes, please go ahead. I yield the floor to the vote. Islam.
Izine Kamalani Bay, yay.
Islam. Thank you.
The territory. Yes.
Justice Cynthia Ann Bay, yay. And
Islam. Thank you.
Rosetta L. Khalifa Territory, yay.
Islam. Thank you, Empress.
Islam. Ellen Crowder, L. Mississippi Territory, yay.
Islam. Thank you.
Islam.
Islam. Thank you, Bill.
Islam. Michael Tumawing Bay, Mississippi Territory, yay.
Islam. Thank you, Nobility.
Islam.
Islam, Nobility.
Will every semester day
Islam. Thank you, Nobility.
Tatali from Khalifa Territory.
Islam. Thank you, Nobility.
Sharif Bay, Khalifa Territory, yay.
Islam. Thank you, Nobility.
Minnesota Territory, yay.
Islam. Thank you, Nobility.
Islam. Morpheus, Pascal, Maryland Territory, yay.
Islam. Thank you, Nobility. And I see some in the chat as well. Islam. Thank you, Nobility. Yes, Islam, Justice Amos conveyance already has red on his conveyance. Islam. Okay, there are, and I am getting the votes in the chat as well. I believe we have the unanimous vote. Okay. We do have a unanimous vote. And then also there is a little bit of feedback coming from one of the lines. I believe it's that one. Yes, it is. So, yes, we do want to put that on the public record that as a safety precaution and all of that. Now, again, Moors, we are setting we're putting things in place for the billions of Moors that are about to wake up. That's what this is all about. That is why we are doing what we're doing. Thank you, Empress Nabi. This is what we're doing, because see, some of us do feel like, oh, there's not that many Moors. No, every brown face you see is a Moor, for the most part. And plus, there's going to be our subjects also. Okay? So we're preparing everything for them. And that is why we're doing what we're doing. We're voting the way we're voting and putting things on the public record so that we can know them and recognize and assist. Okay? With that being said, I wanted to bring something up. Yes, Islam Empress.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I had a successful demonstration last week. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I've been holding back because I'm not sure if my transmission would come through, but we here in the park I live in the forest. We have like tree companies that have been coming into our park. They come in early in the morning, no warning, and they come in with their saws and their chippers, and we're all woken up, early in the morning with their noise, the backup beepers on their trucks. So this has gone on for weeks, and it seems like the management and even some of the men in the park had been talking to them about, making some arrangement that they don't just come in here without letting the management know or any of us know, just showing up off the cuff. So one day last week, the ancestor said to me, "This is your job. Go out there and take care of this." So I went out and I talked to them, and I identified myself, and I did a court action, and I said to them, if you do not leave this park right now, this is a notice to lien, and do not come back until you have made an appointment with the management, and we all know that you're all going to be here. To my surprise, there must have been about 6 or 7 trucks in here at that point. To my surprise, the foreman gave them the signal to wrap it up and pull out. Within 5 minutes, they were all gone. I was shocked.
Beautiful. Go ahead, Empress. Empress Cynthia, where did you go? We can't hear you if you're speaking. Islam. Empress Cynthia, I think you may have okay. Empress Cynthia, we can't hear you if you're speaking. Let me see if I can unblock that or unlock it. For some reason, Empress Cynthia, it went blank really quickly. Are you there, Empress Cynthia? Empress Cynthia, you may have to go out and come back in, because if you're speaking, it's muted and I cannot unmute it.
I think they cut her off.
You know what? It would not surprise me. However, that is actually how our government works. Now, and I will say this more, from what I saw yesterday, everything is already changed over. It's changed. Everything is changed. The land is changed. It is changed. From what I saw yesterday, it's changed. And when we speak and when we are ourselves, and Empress Cynthia actually just affirmed what happened with me yesterday. That turned out the way it was supposed to turn out, once I calmed down. Now, I will say this, Morris, and I'm sure that some can relate to this. So I'm going to speak about myself, because that's the perspective that I yesterday more. There was a time of fear inside of me, and let me tell you where that fear came from before we did the energy work and got rid of it. The fear came from this. We have, like in my sleep, if my conveyance would have stopped on the side of the road, it wouldn't have been a big deal. I would have just picked up the phone and made a few phone calls, and everything would have been taken care of. right? It should still be the same way on this side, but it's gonna look differently from what it did then. See, then I didn't realize that I was being treated as a minor. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that all of those contracts made things convenient until it wasn't convenient anymore. And had that happened and in my sleep, and there had, if the frauds had issued a quote unquote warrant and the conveyance stopped on the side of the road, I wouldn't have been going home. I'd have been going to jail because of the fraud. But because of us stating who we are properly on the public record and then handling that situation of persons and fraudulent persons and the persons that we create, it was a very beautiful demonstration, and the system worked exactly like it was supposed to work. I didn't have to worry. I didn't know that I didn't have to worry at first, but my first thought was, okay, how do I handle this? And that's something that the ancestors wanted me to know how to do before I get a Range Rover conveyance or whatever other conveyance, because I have a conveyance. My conveyance is fine. It needs transmission fluid. It's practically brand new. Practically, it's 2014, and it's actually not mine. It belongs to my heiress. So it shouldn't have been stopping on the side of the road, but the ancestors wanted to show me some things. But when it first happened, I was like, okay, I don't have any contracts with anybody. What do I do? And the ancestor said, well, if you calm down, we'll show you. So I calmed down. We sat and did the energy work. And this was probably about an hour into, maybe about 45 minutes or into sitting there thinking, what am I going to do? That's what I was thinking. And the ancestors gave me enough time for us to think, okay, do energy work. Do energy work, and the answer will come, or someone else will come, and you will know how to handle it. So I just sat there, and me and the Empress that was with me did the energy work. And as soon as I opened my eyes and looked, the help was there, So that has been the dichotomy or the paradox or the seemingly opposing views or perspectives that we were able to reconcile over the last 24 to 48 hours. I was so confused by the time I got home until I actually had the time to think and let the ancestors explain to me what just happened. Because we're not at war with anyone. So then how do we get that system to work for us? Number one, without putting out fiat. And number two, without frauds trying to take jurisdiction and start claiming things that don't belong to them. And the first thing they said was, get calm first so that you can do what needs to be done. Get calm first. So I had to calm down, close my eyes, take a deep breath. We took 3 deep breaths, and then I began to speak in my spirit that everything is good, it's all fine, everything is good. Because, see, in my sleep, it would have been real easy to just pick up the phone and la, 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 and everything be fine and me be on my way. Well, that was the ancestors showing the minors how the system is supposed to work. But from our sovereign status now, we're different now. We are actually the government. We're the law. So the system looks the same, but it's different. It works differently. So it took me a minute to work that out in my mind. to work that out. Like, okay, all of the things that we say, how do we reconcile that with this system that pulled up behind me offering to help without an investigation, without the criminal investigation that happens when fake policy enforcers come up and start asking questions? And the ancestor said, that's your system right there. You're Washington, aren't you? I said, yeah, I am. They said, okay. Washington came. They did what they were supposed to do, which is peacefully assist and then go their way. And then provide everything that I needed when the Washington Department of Transportation pulled up behind us. Everything that I needed, he had in order to get to the next point, which was to call my consort and have him to come. So the ancestors were showing us, you know, that this is all one. We have to be ourselves no matter what. We have to be ourselves no matter what. And we have to assert our authority with each face that comes forth to do any type of exchange or commerce or whatever it is. We state who we really are, and do not give in to all of that questioning and all of that stuff, because that stuff is not even, that's unconstitutional for them to even question. And for those who need to see that in the Constitution, let me show it to you. Just let me see if I can pull that up really quickly. Let me show you here where you're not to be questioned, actually. Just one moment. It'll be quicker if I just do it this way. Let's see.
Islam.
Islam, Empress.
Is it where they shall not be questioned in any other place, no sentence,
Yeah.
and that's Article 1, Section 6, which is what you had stated earlier.
Yeah. This is a Section 6.
Isn't that it?
There it is right here. Yeah, this is it right here. It is Article 1, Section 6. It says here, the senators and representatives shall receive a compensation for their services to be ascertained by law and paid out of the Treasury of the United States. We're getting there, by the way. They shall, in all cases except treason, felony, and breach of peace, be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective houses and in going to and returning from the same. And for any speech or debate in either house, they shall not be questioned in any other place. Article 1, Section 6. So, and again, this Congress here in our state, we've adopted that. So, no, we're not to be questioned in any manner, really, because questioning, whoever is doing the asking is acting as the king. So, you know, and again, I don't mind we speak to each other here, but you know, when I'm receiving a service, I don't expect to be questioned about that, because I will have already given all of the commands that need to be given prior to getting the service. Okay, and we're not trying to be mean or abrasive or anything like that. But I will say that again, like I stated earlier, blacks don't get respect, and you know, because people thought that we were blacks and we were kind of acting, you know, outside of our nobility, some respect was lost there. You know, and, you know, blacks are not due respect because that's not a status. That's not a proper status. So we want to be sure that as we go about doing what we're doing, that we return the land and its subjects and everything that has to do with it back to lawfulness. And that's part of lawfulness there. That's part of that's the supreme law for the land as coming from us, you know, coming from our status and from our state. So, and all of us are the government, by the way. So for those who are wondering, oh, who elected y'all? Mother elected us. And so, you know, at the appointed time, for those who want to do elections and things like that, okay, do elections, that's fine. But everyone is responsible for governing. All Moors are responsible for governing. Every last one of us, because this land belongs to every last one of us. So I want to bring something up, speaking of the Treasury and our, you know, because we talk about, we just mentioned in Article 6, you know, that pay is supposed to be coming from the Treasury and, you know, we're supposed to be receiving compensation. It did not say income because income is not constitutional for us. Who elected the Messiah? That's a good question, Empress Shatab. The people did. Mother did. The mother of whoever it is that you're calling Messiah. Everyone must. Yes, and I get where you're going with that, Empress. The one that the Christians call Savior was elected by us. Yeah. Their Savior was elected by us, not by Rome, not by the fake Rome, because we're the real Rome. Rome, actually, ancient Rome, the real ancient Rome, not the fake. And again, please remember this. There's two sides to all of that. There was us initially, and then there were the mimics who came and just hypothecated and corrupted and acted out the ugliness of unlawful government. They acted it out. The unlawfulness of the ugliness of unlawful government is what they acted out. So that as we continue to stand, we don't repeat that. We don't do that. Islam, Empress.
Islam. So,
can you speak up just a little bit? You sound really low.
Okay. So my point of it was when he knew his Messiah, when he knew his assignment, he didn't go out and collect votes to get started. He just got started. And
yes.
and he got questioned all day long. You know, who are you? Who made you know?
Yeah.
So, but that didn't stop him. He knew his Messiah. He knew his assignment.
Yeah.
So you just you get out there and you just start doing it because you know you're supposed to be doing it. And so anybody who's saying, you know, it was a laugh. Oh, he the king of the Jews. Whatever. You know, he just kept going and doing what he was supposed to do. And there was no official election to put him in the position that he was in. He just stepped into his, you know, his rightful status.
Yes, and the thing about that too is, Empress, that when it came to the crucifixion, it was the people who decided that. Not even Pilate could say no, don't do that to him. They left it up to the people.
Yeah. And so everything is still up to the people. That's us.
Yes.
So we don't need no election like they do and all that. We don't need all that. We just need to get this.
The only time an election comes into play is if we're using our all caps commercially to do some things. That's what elections really are for, in the sense that we have seen them, you know. And then the imperial divan, which is actually a spiritual ecclesiastical first. That means mother says to do that. In terms of mother says, you already are those offices. Now just work it out. You know, we are already, and some people use the term caliphate. Okay, it means according to what we say it means. But we are already that. We're already the popes. We're already the presidents. We're already all of that. And then when we manifest in the 3D, if we want to run for office, we can run for office. And that is actually a part of the 3D manifestation at some point, you know. So, and that goes for any of us, because we are our own sovereign state. So we do need to, at some point, have people running for election, and just look. All we got to do, same thing we've been doing. Look at how they did it, and then bring it into our state and adopt it into our state, and then go. That's how we do it. So, in speaking about, you know, the Treasury and the compensation and the pay and things like that. So, with regard to that, let me go to this document. Just one moment. Okay. We have the authority to move credits, currency, gold, and silver within our United States. Okay. Our United States Treasury is goes to the credits and currency, gold and silver, goes from the Treasury to the United States National Bank, and then we began moving it around in commercial venues and things like that. The United States Federal Reserve, the United States Credit Restoration and Debt Cancellation Ministry begins to move things around, etc. And if you want to know where that comes from and where that authority is stated, regulation of the banking business, powers and duties of national banks. This is Title 12, Banks and Banking of the USC Codes. And this is Chapter 2, and this is the second half of Chapter 2, subsection 95. It says all of the following transactions are prohibited. That means they can't do them if they're not the following. It says, except as specifically authorized by the Secretary of the Treasury by means of regulations, rulings, instructions, licenses, or otherwise, if such transactions are by or on behalf of or pursuant to the direction of any foreign country designated in this order or any national thereof, or such transactions involve property in which any foreign country designated in this order or any national thereof has had any interest of any nature whatsoever, direct or indirect. A, all transfers of credit. So we have the authority to do transfers of credit and all of that. And again, we're the United States, the living United States. All transfers of credit between any banking institutions within the United States, and all transfers of credit between any banking institution within the United States and any banking institution outside the United States, including any principal, agent, home office, branch, or correspondent outside the United States of a banking institution within the United States. So we can craft our affidavits and do ledger-to-ledger transfers of credit. We've been demonstrating some of that and watching the system to see how that works. And what we're going to do is continue demonstrating that so that we can see and know that everything that we've done and that we've put on the public record and the exchanges that we've made, that we get affirmation that those exchanges did indeed do as commanded. B is all payments by or to any banking institution, within the United States. C, all transactions in foreign exchange by any person within the United States. When they say persons, they're talking the all caps or the in capitis diminutio minima, thinking depending on how you state your in capitis diminutio minima. The export or withdrawal from the United States or the earmarking of gold or silver coin or bullion or currency by any person within the United States. All transfers, withdrawals, or exportations of or dealings in any evidences of indebtedness or evidences of ownership of property by any person within the United States. And lastly, any transaction for the purpose of which which has the effect of evading or avoiding the foregoing prohibitions, Islam. So that just covers everything that we, the nationals, have at our disposal and to do with as we so desire. So again, that is this second part here, Section 1, certain foreign banking transactions prohibited. Okay, and it states there that, you know, we can do bank-to-bank transfers of credit. Okay, and whenever it's talking about banking, not one time does it even say anything about Federal Reserve debt notes. It may say Federal Reserve notes every now and then, but Federal Reserve debt notes are not mentioned in there. And the nationals, our credit and our credits, our bank credits, for example, the VA sends a certain number of bank credits every month. Those bank credits, because we have terminated all corporate contracts with the debtors, so now those are credits. Those bank credits, I can move them around, and if I give someone delarium, those bank credits will follow that delarium. So if I were to give, if I say, Empress Jatali, I'm going to give you $500. If I say I'm going to give you $500, and I'm not saying I'm going to give you that, I'm just using that as an example. If I say, Empress Jatali, I'm going to give you $500, I'll send you $500. I'll send the delarium, but then I'll say, okay, give me your banking information and your address, because it's the same way that banks would do. Whenever banks are wanting to send or receive, they'll say, give us a bank account, a routing number, and then we'll need your name and address, because they're doing the same thing we're doing. They're saying, okay, we're going to make the bank credits move after we give the money. The bank credits follow. So I would then send her $500 delarium or 500 fiduciary dollars, which are United States dollars also. And then I would say, okay, give me your address and the name that the bank account is in, and the bank account number and the routing number, and then the bank credits will follow. So wherever my delarium goes, bank credits follow. So if I say, for example, when we begin doing the sea salt, either it will be gold or silver or bank credits in delarium or fiduciary money that we accept. The bank credits must follow. And that's going to go for, and here's the thing, even if the banks are all shut down, the delarium or the fiduciary money will do the same thing. We'll say, okay, we can put bank credits on our books because we got delarium from Empress Chitali or someone for this sea salt. We can put bank credits on our books. You know. So, and then she would just take the bank credits off of her books. So it'll be ledger to ledger also. And that's if that's whether the internet was working or not. We could still do ledger to ledger commerce. You know. So that's how our commerce is going to go, because we're done with the fiat system in terms of commerce and everything else from our perspective here. And so we just figured out that, hey, the only thing they were doing was they had those notes, those Federal Reserve debt notes, and if you give someone Federal Reserve debt notes, they just made it so that all of the vendors would accept those, and then when they accept them and take them to a bank, the bank would put the credits into the account. Well, we say, okay, we can move the credits back and forth, or we can give them delarium or fiduciary money, and when they take that fiduciary money or that delarium and they bring it to our bank, we'll put the deposit into their account. So we have something coming up in the next few weeks. I'm just waiting on the ancestors to give me the go-ahead to put it out there. And it's another major step in our banking process. And I believe, I know in my knower that this was that step that we needed to put out there. That will make it so that the bank credits actually go back and forth like it's supposed to. But we'll be putting that forth. We want to lay it out properly as the ancestors give it, so that it makes complete sense and so that it clicks with all of us when we put it out there. And then we will, our money system is a trust system. So that when someone gives you fiduciary money or they give you delarium, that you all can agree that, okay, in 6 weeks the bank credits will come. or in 20 years the bank credits will come. Because that's what the corporations were doing anyway. They were saying, okay, we're going to fill out these papers and we're going to buy out XYZ company. And they would say, okay, this paper says we bought that company, but the bank credits wouldn't follow for years, if ever, in some cases. Sometimes they would just dismantle the company and then say, okay, bank credits in as much as it was dismantled. But but everything has to be done in honor. It is an honor system. Our system has been an honor system from day one. And yesterday's, what I thought, what I witnessed yesterday, even in my own demonstration, tells me that the system's ready for us. It's waiting for us. We just have to keep moving in the direction that we're moving. So with that being said, the things that we're saying are not the most popular things. They're not the most popular, but they are truth. And that's all. That's why we do what we do. We're okay with it not being the most popular thing, but it is. So it is. It is. We call it into being, and then there it is. So with that being said, are there any other questions, comments, or anything of that nature?
Islam
nobility.
Yes, I was thinking about the land. Now, whereby land was given to the Europeans when they came to the United States Federal Corporation.
It was granted. It was granted. That's why they're called immigrants.
Yeah, that's true. But I was also thinking that they basically just because during those times, somewhere around 1600 up to about actually 1619, President Jackson basically granted 75% of the land to the Europeans to get started. They came here with $2 in their pocket, maybe not even that much, in a suitcase with a couple of trousers and a shirt or whatever. But they were given the opportunity to take a stake it in the ground, and just map out as much acreage as they wanted. And all this was done by way of the 14th Amendment. But at the same time, when they drafted the 14th Amendment, it was to recapture the slaves back into the enclave of the Federal Corporation Company. But at the same time, when you look at the 14th Amendment, they said entity/persons. Corporations are classified as persons. So they granted the land to the corporation companies for Europeans. So they capitalized on it, especially the ones in the South, because they basically are about close to the end of 1600. About around that time, the majority of the families had about $100,000 in net worth, and that was serious funds during those times. But out of that, say about that 75%, about roughly only about 314 grants were extended to major corporations, and that was exclusively for the Europeans. Now, out of that 314, about 4 to 5 Moors decided to take action and utilize that same grant. Only about 4 to 5 was attempted to do that, and guess what? All of those 4 to 5 lost. Didn't get one dime. Not one stretch of land.
That's not their system.
Yes, that's true. But it's so funny that the 14th Amendment was intentionally drafted for the subject Moors, But at the same time, they benefited nothing from it, except brought them back into the enclave and they signed a Social Security number to them so they could capitalize from their birth certificate, their dead birth certificate. At that. Yes.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that because just think, how in the world are you going to compete with people who had opportunity to stake out as much land as they wanted back in those times? And on top of that, they assigned state representatives to go out to the farms to teach them how to farm, cultivate the land. There was no out-of-pocket money whatsoever from the Europeans.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the subject Moors was made sharecroppers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically what happened.
Yeah.
Islam.
They were. Let me address this first, please. So that's where we all are now. At this point that we're at now, we get to go and pick as much land as we want. Right now, today, we did it with 1.6 million acres here. The Moors can go out and pick as much land as they are competent to choose. You got to choose it competently according to the way our system works. And then you learn how to govern it. And it's remembering how to govern it. And now remember, Moors, can you imagine what the foreigners said when they came here and we were everywhere? And they said, well, how is it that we get to pick all this land with all these Moors here? And it was through the paperwork? Okay, we're there again. And you just asked the same question. How do you compete with them when they had that much of a leg up? It's all new now. It's new. This is all new. And even though it looks like people are here, when those that are acting out the World Economic Forum say you will own nothing and you'll be happy, it's because the Moors have reclaimed everything, repossessed everything. So we're at that very same place right now. Right now. Because, see, people think that the foreigners that we see, all those foreigners around, thinking that there is, that they own something when they are sitting up telling you they don't own nothing. So now what do? We claim and everything. Empress Shasha, listen, teach, Empress. She said there is no competition with the sovereigns. There's none. We get to look at, and everything was already done. All we got to do is adopt it. Adopt it. Put everything back like it's supposed to be. So right now, as it stands, this land is wide open for the Moors to just go, 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 and govern, 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 and be the land. And then when you talked about people going out, the government sent people out to teach them how to farm. What you think we doing? We got Moors on this call that are master farmers. And what do they need to do? Go on YouTube and show people how to farm. And then we look at their YouTube videos and then we say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And we do it. See, our liberation, our freedom, us being the lords for the land, and now the custodians and stewards as well, does not look the way that people thought it was going to look. Listen, this land is wide open and we can do whatever we want to do. We just have to know how to do it. That's why we started focusing on city government. because that's something all Moors can do in their territories. It's wide open. No one is even rebutting us, and we on the public record just talking and governing and putting things out there, saying what we're going to do and then doing it, watching it happen, watching it manifest. Yesterday, the demonstration that happened yesterday, I already know the land is ours. It's ours. It's ours. All we have to do is keep remembering how to govern it. Go ahead and stand and start governing. You know, the Savior, the one who saved the whole world, quote unquote, he didn't get nobody's permission to do that, and the subjects worship that one. They didn't elect that one. And I'm saying that one in terms of the anthropomorphic stories that we've been told, the childlike stories that we've been told. The real, true Yeshua, go look in the mirror. You don't need anybody's permission to govern your land and claim as much as you are competent to claim. We showed you how we went on to the Bureau for Land Management website, and we saw something that said, quote unquote, state of Washington or Washington State. It said Washington State. And it was 1.6 acres, and there was 1.6 million acres, and then there was others there in the names of individuals. So we just took the one we saw for Washington State, and we adopted it and put it on the public record and got the inferior courts to agree. So now what do? Govern. Know how to govern what's before us. Everything that they did in 1871, 1872 mining law, we already know about that. We can go out on the land right now and mine, but we got to know how to do that competently. The land is ready for us. It's waiting on us to know how to govern it. The banking system is waiting on us to know how to govern it. We have no enemies. We only have subjects and other Moors. We have no enemies. We're not at war. Everyone is under our authority that needs to be there. And that's everyone who's not us. And then there's us. And we just have to agree. That's all. And we're doing that. We're doing that already. We just proved it 30 minutes ago. So everything is wide open for us right now. Everything is wide open. Wide open. It's almost like it's 1871 again, but not really. Except it's us this time. We get to do whatever we want to do. We just have to get up and do it. You don't see anybody trying to stop us from doing anything. No one's trying to stop us. Now, I will say this too. The more competent we become at governing, the more people will see and know what's going on. That's why we don't worry about the numbers. We don't worry about them. In fact, they are a great indicator that we are absolutely doing what we should be doing. So all we're doing is just knowing, and demonstrating. Now, I wanted to speak briefly about arrest warrants because Moors, especially with what Justice Azim brought forward about about the land and how, the Europeans got to do this, that, and the third back in 1871 and la, 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 la. We're glad they acted that out because now we know how we do it, how we're supposed to do it. So I'm going to read to you about arrest warrants because I want you to see the other side of arrest warrants. I want you to see the other side because there's another side that's going to make everybody happy. So let's put this on the screen. Arrest warrant or summons on a complaint. The ancestors brought this forward. This is Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure because we were talking about other ways to get property. There's more than one way to do it, okay, to take back what rightfully belongs to us. And when we talk about arrest warrants and summons, we're not even thinking about living, breathing people. We're talking about property now, okay? It says the issuance. Who is it that can issue an arrest warrant or summons on a complaint? If the complaint or one or more affidavits. Did they just say affidavits? Yes. There must be affidavits to accompany the form that is a warrant or a summons. There must be an affidavit somewhere. So that's why we've been saying, Morris, with these forms that we're creating, have your affidavit go with it because that is how law works. So it says, if the complaint or one or more affidavits filed with the complaint establish probable cause to believe that an offense has been committed and that the defendant committed it, the judge may issue an arrest warrant to an officer authorized to execute it. The officer is executing, Morris, the document. They're not executing people, they're executing a document. It says further, at the request of an attorney for the government, that's what our attorney in fact documents were about. At the request of an attorney for the government, the judge must. It doesn't say they might do it. It doesn't say that they have an option. It says the judge must issue a summons instead of a warrant to a person authorized to serve it. So the person is authorized to serve the paper, not the person, the paper. So persons act on paper. A judge may issue more than one warrant or summons on the same complaint. If an individual defendant fails to appear in response to a summons, a judge may, and upon request of an attorney for the government, must issue a warrant. If an organizational defendant fails to appear in response to a summons, a judge might take an action authorized by United States law. What are they saying there? They're saying if someone is coming as an individual, then if an attorney says something, then a warrant must be issued. And this is why statehood is so important and why the things that we have done and put on the public record with regard to our person is so important and why it works. It says, but then they change the language here and they say if an organizational defendant fails to appear, then a judge might do something in accordance to United States law or not. Now, I want to show you where we can use arrest warrants to get back all property. If you've ever had a conveyance stolen or taken from you, you can get that back. Okay? So here, form. And we reform. So we look at the warrants that they issue and we say, okay, let's create our own and issue it. Because our warrants come from our state, not theirs. It says warrant. A warrant must contain the defendant's name. Do Moors have names? No. We are over names, though. We have jurisdiction over all names. Contain the defendant's name, or if it is unknown, a name or description by which the defendant can be identified with reasonable certainty. This is why we know we're not black. Describe the offense charged in the complaint. Command that the defendant be arrested and brought without unnecessary delay before a magistrate judge, or, if none is reasonably available, before a state or local judicial officer, and be signed by a judge. A summons must be in the same form as a warrant. In other words, summons and warrants are the same. They're the same. And a summons is an invitation. It's an invitation. By definition, it's, are you invited to the party? And should you go to the party? And are they even talking to you? It says a summons must be in the same form as a warrant, except that it must require the defendant to appear before a magistrate judge at a stated time and place. When it says, anytime you see the word stated, just think, is it your state or my state? Is it your state? Is it the dead state or the living state? That's what the word stated means. That's why they don't say, as long as it says a time and place. They don't say that. They say, is it stated? Because there are other words they could use. The words are properly, this word is properly placed. And then it talks about who can issue those, marshals, authorized officers, etc. The part that I wanted to bring forth is, I want to go down here a little further. And here we could go into the fact that its service is done, and this is for Moors and our documents too, by leaving a copy at the defendant's residence or usual place of abode with a person of suitable age and discretion residing at the location, and by mailing a copy to the defendant's last known address. Again, you can just leave it there. You can leave it on the counter at any place that you go that has a person of suitable age and discretion. Okay? So some say, no, you got to get somebody's signature and la la la. No, just serve it. And again, we've been doing it where we just put it on the counter and walk out without saying a word to anyone. Why? We don't have to. They can look at the documents, because the first thing they'll start asking is, hey, excuse me, ma'am, what is this about? You can't do la la. No. Documentation. That's all you need to hear and know. So, just one moment. Let me put that back. Okay. All of this, warrant by telephone, I wanted to point this out, warrant by telephone, and then I'll tell you how warrants work best for us. Warrants are issued on persons, right? It says it right here. Warrants are issued on persons. And then after that warrant is issued, that person is then changed from being a person to a defendant. Okay? Did you know that here, A warrant is executed by arresting the defendant. So it can be issued but not executed. But execution of a warrant is by arresting the defendant. Okay? It says upon arrest, an officer possessing the original or a duplicate original warrant must show it to the defendant. If the officer does not possess the warrant, the officer must inform the defendant, Okay. But before you are not us, but before any person is a defendant, they're a person first. Well, what do we know about persons? A person is any word in all capital letters. So a person can even be a conveyance or a domicile or an address. I found out today, and I've known this in my spirit all along, of course, but I have actual proof that all property had a warrant issued in order for anybody to claim that property. All property had a warrant issued in order for that property to be claimed. And then what did they do with those warrants? They cashed them in at the Treasury. Because I've heard so many times that the Treasury operates on warrants. And I'm like, we know that. We know that, that when they issue a warrant, it's in all capital letters, and then that they were getting paid for that. But Morris, did you know that from our sovereign state, we can issue a warrant for a conveyance by properly describing the conveyance in all capital letters, especially knowing that it belongs to us. But then we have to put proper accounting for that conveyance on the public record. It has to be properly claimed by the state, by the United States, and then we can issue a warrant for it. And there have been times in our history, in her story, where we issue warrants for things like gold and silver. And we literally went and got the gold and silver and put it in a jail cell and locked it in there. Until after the trial and put guards, rotating guards on it. And in reality, that is what has happened thus far. The gold that we know is ours, there were warrants issued, and those warrants hadn't been rebutted until right now. We hereby rebut all warrants on our gold. We hereby issue a warrant collecting all of our gold, and we execute that warrant right now. All gold belongs to the Moors. The original indigenous sovereign ancient Al-Moroccan Moors here on this call, and who are the sovereign original indigenous natural divine United States. So we can actually update our United States corporation company documents to state something to that effect, and put the warrant with it that we just issued, and then go forth in that manner. And we can create instruments, gold-backed instruments for that gold as well. Okay. All in favor of that warrant being placed on the public record, if you would state quickly. Islam.
This is Rosetta L. from Khalifa Territory. Yay.
Islam. Thank you.
Islam. Izine Bay, Khalifa Territory. Yay.
Islam.
Reef Bay, Khalifa Territory. Yay.
Islam. I didn't vote last time, but like the Jury Bay, yay. Go ahead, Nobility.
Will Edward Smith Bay, Mississippi Territory. Aye.
Islam. Michael Tuamini Bay, Mississippi Territory. Yay.
Islam. Thank you, Nobility.
Islam. Justice
Islam.
Malik Kill Bay, Illinois Territory is yay.
Islam. Justice Light Tajiri Bay, also Pauline Denise Ritchie, yay.
Shasha Ann Bay, Jamaica Territory, yay.
Thank you, Empress.
Helen Crowder L, Mississippi Territory.
Thank you, Empress. And I will read those in the chat. Let's see. Shay Marie, yay. Empress Topper L, yay. Justice Messiah Bay, yay. Empress Denise Brown Bay, yay. Justice Gregory Flint and Empress Carolyn Linda Wiggins L, yay. Emperor Justice Louis Bay, yay. Justice Bilal Abdullah Bay, Dawood Bay, Wampanoag Territory, yay. Justice Varnina, yay. Consort Ronsky L. Bay, thank you, Empress Shavery, yay. Okay. Is there anyone else? Anyone else? Islam. And just one moment. I forgot that the conference was all this time. I apologize to the Moors that are out there. My apologies. Islam. Islam nobility.
Noble Timothy Hassan Bay, yay.
Islam, thank you, nobility. Yeah, there's a little bit of noise coming from one of the lines ending in 1875, so I had to So we have another unanimous vote here for issuing the arrest warrant for all property, all gold, and also all unappropriated funds in the Treasury, our Treasury. And again, it's ours, but we have to know the processes, and the process is to issue an arrest warrant for property, all property, from our perspective in terms of executing the law. So we want to ensure that and show and state that we know the law and we know the processes by which we govern Islam. Why is the subject matter of arrest warrants so important to our states and governments? It is so important because we can issue them for property that was unlawfully placed in the custody of individuals acting under color of law and under color of authority. So
is everybody flying to the Constitutional
so for where the Moors are concerned, Moors, all of you, you have the absolute authority to, I just talk all over that, don't I? So we can issue the warrants for your conveyances and things like that. Those need to be issued by the Moors. You don't need anyone to issue them for you. So there's no need for that exchange unless you want to do that exchange. But our government, and we all are the government, that's another service that our government provides, is we issue warrants to recover all that was taken, all that was that we thought we lost, and all of that. And here's my suggestion, Morris. Even if you have the property in your possession currently, go ahead and put a warrant on the public record. Because, see, the warrant piece, you know, some may say, well, we've already done so much already. Yeah, but warrants are actually custody documents. When a warrant is executed, you can go ahead and arrest the property. Okay? And that is actually, in the past era, that was a military operation that was going on all over the land. Actually, not on the land, but on the paper. That was a military operation. Well, we are peacekeepers. We're not at war. So our military is a military, but it's not that kind of military. It's not for war. It's for peace. And so we are. That is where the issuing of warrants and the taking custody of all that we need to take custody of. This is yet another part of the demonstration that I did with the conveyance that needed to be put in place also, is because I know that the documents that I did were correct up to that point, because when I went there was no for sale sign on the conveyance. But it was just sitting there waiting for me to take custody of it. And so I'm just going to continue looking at that process, and continue adding to what I've done already. There's another part of the process also that that we're going to be putting forth and putting on the public record, and it is a major financial announcement that we have for our state and our nation, and earth-wide, actually, a major financial announcement coming up soon. And we'll let you know when we're going to have that announcement made. And then we'll also vote as a body on the particulars of that announcement, because it is it's follow-up to all that we've been doing from the very beginning. Just one moment. So again, just for the record, Morris, to issue a warrant is not custody yet. To execute the warrant is when you take custody of the property. And you can do all of that at once if you care to do so. Issuing a warrant, though, there has to be, again, nationality is the first thing that has to be on the public record. Nationality, name change, judicial proclamation, a lien on all of that other stuff, on the fake dead nom de guerre and the social that the dead was using. Proclamation of trust document, the fiduciary document. What else? And a lien on the United States Corporation Company, the dead one. And by the way, with our United States Corporation Company that we have put on the public record as the creditors, the people already have the first lien on our United States Corporation Company. And with that first lien, just by virtue of their nationality, the lien is already in place. And so in order for there to be any second lien holder, they would have to actually name or state all of the Moors, past, present, and future, in order, and that lien would have to be satisfied first before anyone could do anything with our United States Corporation Company, the gold back that we recently put on the public record. You got to get the Moors that are coming too, because it's theirs too, which means it will never happen. No one else will be able to lien our United States. So with that being said, are there any other questions, comments, anything of that nature? And we're going to be expanding on that warrant piece. And then also, Moors, if you want to expand on the warrant piece on our next call or our next couple of calls, please feel free to do so, so that we can begin receiving in receivership for all that the bankrupts previously had in their custody. We can go ahead and bring it into our custody. Islam nobility.
Yes, to state in addition to what you said about the warrant, the arrest warrant. Say, for instance, a policyholder pull you over, turn on his lights. Those lights, when they're flashing, that's a symbol of an arrest. You pull you over, walk up to your car.
It's actually supposed to be the symbol of an emergency.
Exactly. It's exactly.
Not
so
an arrest, but an emergency.
Emergency, right. But at the same time, if he doesn't have the arrest warrant, the affidavit in his hand, executed by the magistrate with his so-called signature, then he has just violated your due process.
Of course.
And immediately he's supposed to take you to immediately to a magistrate. If he fails to do that and take you, yeah,
you are the magistrate.
Right, but I'm saying, but see, at the same time, on his mind, if you don't meet his criteria right then and there on that spot, he's going to take you to his little POW camp. But my point is, to avoid that, you demand that he take you and present you to the magistrate right then and there. He fails to do that, that's forced imprisonment. If he fails to do it.
I agree with the spirit of what you're saying. We have to not go anywhere with anybody that's claiming to take us to a judge when we're standing right there.
Right, I understand that, but at the same time, by you making this known to that policyholder, he will basically go back to his car, call in, and be consulted by his senior officer or whatever, and he's not going to do anything. At best, he's going to let you pull away because you're going to confront him and saying, where's your executed arrest warrant? Where's your affidavit? Are you presenting all this information to him, and he's going to be puzzled. He's going to go back and speak to his senior officer, and at the same time, turn around and lien that policyholder for violating your rights.
Those are good questions to ask them when you're doing your court action.
Correct.
The questions that you just put forth as you're doing your court action on the side of the road, those are good questions to ask them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one way to get him to stand up. Right. To get him to stand up.
And this would be my question. Who are you that you don't recognize the heirs? Who are you that you don't realize that this face right here is ancient? We've been here. I look like my greatest grandmother, and she was here before all of y'all. Before any of these offices were created. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, my question is, what is your name? And I did that yesterday. What is your name? And the minute I did that, the energies changed completely to an energy of respect. And dare I say obedience. But that's what happened. You're right, Justice Azim, that, they have a protocol we have to interrupt that energy so that civil things remain civil and don't turn into a criminal investigation. Because, see, their questions are for criminal investigation, and so are ours, by the way. So are our questions. Because then it's like, okay, you don't even have authority. You wearing this uniform. Why? Why? Who told you you could wear it? That on our land?
Well, that uniform is an upgrade.
This turban says I'm the police. This turban right here says I'm the police.
I agree. But the ones who are going to try to supersede your authority out there on the roadway, so you're going to have to challenge that. But at the same time, that uniform is an upgrade from the hood that they used to wear back in the 1600s and so on. They now wearing suit and ties and the so-called three judicial bodies of the corporation company, the judicial, executive, legislative branches, so that they've upgraded their uniforms, but they're same characters. The same character is still there and been transformed and actually passed on through generation and generation to the new offspring as of today. That's why we still get a lot of, feedback from a lot of them.
Some do.
Yes,
some get the feedback.
Exactly.
Others just establish identities from the very beginning. Some do. Some get feedback. But again, it's civil until it turns criminal. So, have you heard more of a duel where whoever draws first? In the old Wild Wild West, they used to have these duels where the cowboys would stand back to back. They would take 3 steps or 10 steps, and then at that 10th step, whoever turn around and draw first, that's the winner, right? Because the
providing that he hits the body.
Yes.
If he missed the target, he's in trouble because he only got one shot in that gun.
You only got one. Well, that's how it is when we come face to face, and it's not even face to face even. I mean, we got to call it what it is. It's subject to master. When we come subject, those are subjects, and we're the master, and someone is trying to ask some questions and do a court action on you, and the first thing that'll come out of their mouth, well, the company said we have to ask those questions. Okay, all rise and stand there too. Because they don't do anything that we don't tell them to do. And we're making that clear. So we have to do court action. That's how you draw first. That's how you draw first. Except with us, we draw the sword. We unsheath our sword. And the sword is really the word. It's a transposition of the word. So when they say war of words, that's that sword that the Biblioheliotext talks about how the power of life and death is in our tongue. Well, yesterday on the side of the road, we demonstrated that. And we didn't have to demonstrate it where it was, nobody had to be, let me see, how do we say this? Yes, it's an anagram, Empress Shasha, where the S is in front on the word sword and it's in back on the word word. Okay, so, whoever draws first is actually, when you use the word draw is a financial term also. It's a financial term. So when you draw up a check, or you withdraw funds. It's a financial term. So whoever draws first gets the booty from the prize from the transaction. So how do you draw first? All rise and stand and remain standing into perpetuity. This is a sovereign living ancient Article 3 court action. Or you can just come right out like I did yesterday. I didn't even say those things. I just knew in my spirit that I'm doing a court action. And I said, what is your name? And then my questions began. And that's where you can tell others that they're under the Constitution if necessary, or you can go straight to commercial questions. You know, someone saying, oh, well, is this supposed to go to this address? What do your commands say? What does your phone say? Because in this case, he had it right in his phone, and he wouldn't have came if he didn't know where to take the thing, because we had already given the command beforehand. And now we had to enforce that, you know. So we drew first. What is your name? And bam, authority was established, and everything and the system worked the way it was supposed to. So with that being said, Morris, thank you so much for putting yet another protective measure on the public record for all Moors with regard to putting the blood over the doorpost. In other words, the red on the conveyances that are pulled over. Anytime Moors need assistance, the red from the conveyance is the way to go. Have some red showing if you're on the side of the road, in case any other Moors pass by. And don't think that more just because you're where you are that Moors may not pass by, because even if it's in your driveway and it's got red there because you need some assistance or something, Moors, you don't know. Listen, when things are done in honor, because I would have never. I mean, I just had to watch in awe as the ancestors sent the remedy without me having to even call by phone. We called in the spirit realm. And as soon as I opened my eyes and I turned to the Empress, I said, do you see who's behind us? And there was assistance. And we got free gas and didn't even need it. So now, Justice Izine, I'm so glad you were on this call. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm glad to be on the call.
Transmission fluid it is.
Yes. Great.
I knew it was something simple.
Yes, and if it doesn't give you satisfaction, have your console to check the bushes, or take it to a service company or a service outlet, such as you probably have to go to
Islam,
some place like that.
Islam.
To have the car lifted, yes, and they can check the bushes to see if they're worn.
Bushings?
The bushings, yes.
Okay.
Yes, the bushings. If they are worn out, then that'll cause that same problem too. But yes, the fluid should get the job done.
You know what? They better not be worn out. That conveyance doesn't have that many miles on it, and it's you're right. And I barely go anywhere with it. So I'm and the transmission fluid is something I hadn't checked, so I need to check that.
Well, most empresses don't think about that.
But you know what, Justice Izine, I will say this: that since I've been knowing who I am, there's nothing off limits for me. I want to know everything.
That's
and
beautiful.
some would say, your man should have took care of that. I want to take care of it. Let me do it.
He has a good one. He has a good woman.
And you know what? I think he knows that too. That's why, I didn't have it. He was, if I didn't know that he was a Moor, he would have been in subject status too, based on his demeanor. He was so nice, not nice. He was so cool yesterday. I'm like, okay, this ancestors, thank you for this whole day, because I got to see, what I needed to see. So, yeah, Islam. And here you go, Justice Azim, just putting some more out there for us to use.
Well, thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That's why I don't mind sharing my demonstrations and things that happen, because I get more remedy on these calls. Because of us. We're all here. I get more remedy on these calls. It's amazing. So with that being said, we will adjourn here until Thursday. Peace and grand rising to all of the Moors. May your day be blessed. May all days that you are here and manifesting be blessed. Islam. Peace.
And same to
Islam.
You. Islam.
Thank you, nobility.
Have a great week.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Empress.
Islam.
Islam.
Islam. Peace and love.
Thank you, Empress.
Islam. Peace and love.
Hello, Grand Rising.
Islam.
Islam. Virginia.
Islam.
Islam.
Islam.